Sunlight shines on a grand, beautiful estate. A red-haired girl studies, thinking of her upcoming exam. She resolves to increase her study time and organize materials. Holding her quill, she thoughtfully considers her plan. She realizes she's going to be busier than she thought. Her thoughts drift to her mother, who has been dating someone for 2 months. The rustle of a fancy pink dress approaches quickly. The door bursts open as a woman in a pink gown calls out for Marion. The radiant, red-haired woman beams with pure joy. Marion looks up from her desk, startled by the sudden entrance. Her mother stands before her, a curious question in her eyes. She gushes about how her suitor pays attention to her every move. At the table, she excitedly explains the wedding is happening quickly because he insisted on uniting soon. She happily admits she gave in, as he even offered to handle all the wedding preparations himself. Marion calmly remarks that he seems decent, which her mother eagerly confirms, asking if Marion agrees. Taking a sip of tea, Marion reflects that she never expected this relationship would lead to marriage. She recalls her mother signing divorce papers only half a year ago, vowing never to marry again. In the present, Marion's mother is lost in a moment of blissful happiness. Marion watches her mother's joy with a gentle, understanding smile. Her mother announces she'll introduce him today, asking Marion to keep her afternoon free, leaving Marion to ponder the suddenness of it all. Marion smiles warmly and agrees to her mother's request. A brown-haired maid stands by, watching with a concerned expression. Marion politely asks the maid, Dina, for another drink. As Dina serves her, Marion dismisses her mother's behavior, saying she's never been one for an ordinary life. Dina agrees, acknowledging that she is, after all, the renowned Madame Tetiana. The story begins, introducing Madame Tetiana, or Madame Titi, a former opera singer from a rural province who captivated many with her beauty. She was adored by countless patrons and hailed as the star of high society. But then, one day, she vanished from the public eye completely. Despite many searches, she was forgotten until she suddenly returned, creating a massive uproar. Upon her return, she was not alone. She held a sleeping baby. Former admirers turned to gossip and criticism, but Tetiana stood proud, holding her child against the world. She declared she could provide more than enough for her child herself, cementing her status as the celebrated Madame Tetiana. Back in the present, Dina clears the table, muttering that for a third marriage, it could be more modest. Deanna grits her teeth, vowing that despite the short notice, she won't allow the preparations to be anything less than perfect. Marion believes no one will notice her beside her radiant mother, questioning if she truly needs to make an effort. Dina playfully scolds the young lady for her comment, and Marion apologizes with a smile, promising to be more mindful to ease Dina's worries. Deanna looks upon the young lady with gentle concern. An opulent red and gold carriage makes its way through the trees. A young man with blonde hair sits inside, holding a large bouquet of yellow flowers. He looks at the beautiful bouquet, thinking they are almost at their destination. He smiles brightly, filled with anticipation at the thought of meeting her soon. Meanwhile, Marion examines her reflection in a standing mirror. She clutches her necklace, wondering about her mother's new fiancé and hoping he can bring her lasting happiness. Her thoughts darken as she considers that her mother's pure appearance hides another side. A knock on the door interrupts her as Dina asks for a moment. Marion invites her in. Dina enters, reporting that Madame Tetiana went ahead to buy jewelry and that Marion should proceed directly to the meeting place. Marion agrees, secretly relieved she won't have to ride in what she considers her mother's ostentatious and extravagant carriage. Dina hesitates, then adds that she saw a strange, unfamiliar carriage parked at the back gate. Marion turns, her curiosity piqued by the news of an unexpected visitor. She dismisses the idea as impossible, wondering who would dare park at their estate's back gate without notice. Marion assumes it's another visitor for her mother. She sees 2 men in uniform, standing on a red carpet. Confused, she wonders what kind of day this is. Hearing a carriage, she questions another lavish arrival. As a boot steps out, she expects another flashy admirer. Seeing the bouquet, she braces for a troublesome dismissal. She's surprised to see the visitor is quite young. The blonde young man smiles, thinking his timing is perfect. Marion watches the approaching man with a wary expression. She comes face to face with the blonde man by his carriage. He beams, thinking this is an incredibly important day he's awaited. He closes his eyes, hoping he can win her heart. Marion judges him a hopeless case and resolves to send him away. She firmly tells the man he cannot see the madam. Marion explains her mother is meeting her wonderful fiancé today. She tries to let him down gently, calling heartbreak an inevitable sorrow. She expresses faith that her mother will overcome this pain. Marion smiles, feeling confident in her polite rejection. As she turns to leave, the man reaches out and calls to her. He insists he knows about the meeting, as Marion internally sighs. Marion turns back, a hint of annoyance on her face. He asks her to call the lady for him, assuming she's inside. Marion is stunned, realizing he came to see her, not her mother. An awkward silence hangs between them. The blonde man looks at Marion with a confused expression. He begins to realize his mistake, wondering if she is Madame Tatiana's. Marion looks flustered by the sudden turn of events. The blonde man finally puts the pieces together. He bows deeply, apologizing for the misunderstanding. Marion reassures him. When asked, she explains she's used to it due to her simple style. He realizes he has yet to properly introduce himself. He formally presents himself as Orion Miller of the Miller Ducal House. Orion smiles, revealing he is her future older brother. He offers her the flowers, explaining his plan to escort her. Holding the bouquet, Marion thinks he's a truly polite person. She feels he doesn't need to be so formal with her. Marion politely declines his offer to ride together, shocking Orion. She explains that their tastes in transportation seem to differ. Marion states she couldn't ride in such an extravagant carriage. A view of the opulent carriage highlights her point. Orion is taken aback by her refusal. He asks how she planned to get there. She says she rented a carriage. Orion immediately declares he will ride in her carriage instead. He insists they go together, but she thinks it will be cramped. Orion beams, saying he doesn't mind as long as they're together. In the other carriage, Orion sits nervously, hands clasped. Squeezed between his knights, Orion faces an unconvinced Marion. Marion suggests they ride separately, seeing their discomfort. Orion forces a smile, insisting it's no inconvenience for his knights. A knight awkwardly agrees, as Marion wonders about their dedication. Marion questions why they must ride together, assuming they need to talk. She reflects on Orion being the young lord of a great ducal house. Orion assumes the commoner Marion is uncomfortable, deciding to speak first to ease the tension as she prepares to say something. The blonde young man is surprised, asking about her worries. Marion clarifies that she and her mother seek no titles or financial support from the marriage. She declares her plan to live independently after graduation, telling him not to worry. A shocked Orion exclaims that wasn't his concern at all, as the carriage lurches violently. While a knight checks on her, a beaming Orion asks the driver to stop the carriage. Fed up, Marion decides to get out and walk the rest of the way. Orion frantically reaches out, calling her name to stop her from leaving. Marion pauses, realizing she and her mother don't need financial support and perhaps she should have simply said so. The narrator explains her mother's patronage ensures she has no financial trouble. Arriving at their destination, Marion is stunned they rented out an entire, enormous cafe. She wonders if the extravagant carriage and venue are typical for ducal families. Marion looks on with a thoughtful, slightly overwhelmed expression. Her mother, Tatiana, cheerfully waves her over to a table where her fiancé sits. The man with ashen blonde hair smiles warmly, formally introducing himself to Marion. He calls the lavish venue a modest place for their first meeting, as Marion thanks him. Marion is taken aback by his idea of modesty as he asks if she came alone. Tatiana explains her fiancé insisted on picking Marion up, assuming they missed each other. Marion quickly clarifies they didn't miss each other, and that she simply came separately. The man ponders her separate arrival, as Tatiana mentions Orion should be there soon. Tatiana chuckles, recounting how Marion told Orion she would just walk instead. A sudden thud interrupts the conversation, as Marion looks toward the sound. The doors burst open as Orion rushes in, calling for his father. Orion stands before them, looking completely flustered and out of breath. His father scolds him for being late, but Tatiana laughs it off good-naturedly. Orion approaches the table and apologizes to Marion for the trouble, which she dismisses. He smiles kindly, saying he should apologize for startling her with his unannounced visit. Marion watches him with a cool, unreadable expression. Her fiancé points out Orion's messy appearance, and Marion notes his polite apology instead of annoyance. The man sternly reminds his son to mind his manners, and Orion quickly apologizes. Tatiana laughs with delight at their family dynamic. The meal is served on an ornate blue and white plate. Tatiana and her fiancé share a joyful moment together. The sound of cutlery clinking fills the air as someone begins to eat. Marion takes a bite, admitting to herself that such formal places make her uncomfortable. When her future stepfather asks if she's uncomfortable, she quickly claims she's just nervous. Tatiana teases her for being nervous, while Marion thinks only her mother could be so poised. The Duke puts down his fork to compliment Marion on her academic achievements. He smiles, calling her a promising talent for the future. Marion humbly credits her success to the guidance of her friends. Orion leans in with a smile, telling her not to be so modest. The family smiles warmly, leaving Marion feeling a bit shocked. Tatiana suggests Marian's nervousness is because of the Duke, remarking on how adorable she is. A hand reaches for a cup as the day draws to a close. Marian sighs, realizing she was too caught up to even finish her dessert tea. Tatiana praises the Duke's good nature, and Marian agrees he's less formal than she expected. The Duke concludes that the introductions and meal were a sufficient start for today. He mentions wanting Orion to escort her as future siblings, causing Orion to light up with happiness. Orion happily declares he'll refrain from escorting her, since she wouldn't want that. Dejected, Orion slumps over the dining table as his family and Marian watch. The Duke and Marian depart as the uncomfortable meeting finally concludes. Marian sighs, relieved that the short but seemingly endless meeting is over. Her mother, Tatiana, and the Duke share a tender moment, holding hands. Marian smiles, feeling content as she walks through the city. Orion rushes up from behind, calling out to get her attention. He clarifies he has something important to say that he couldn't finish earlier. Orion realizes what she must be thinking and blushes with embarrassment. He apologizes for abruptly leaving the carriage in the middle of their conversation. Orion explains that he was thinking about their earlier discussion during the meal. Marian brightly suggests they could have their agreement notarized at the Magic Tower. Her suggestion leaves a chibi Orion completely bewildered. Marian thoughtfully explains that blood-written oaths are avoided because they can discolor over time. She asks if he prefers a stable method or a blood oath, but he rejects both, clenching his fist. Orion snaps that he wants none of her suggestions, startling Marian with his outburst. He runs a hand through his hair, insisting that the two of them need to have a proper talk. Orion looks at her with desperate intensity, declaring that he sincerely believes it's necessary. Marian is left wondering what kind of talk he has in mind. He presents her with a small red box, which she accepts with curiosity. Orion gives her a charming, slightly sheepish smile. Holding the box, Marian concludes that while he isn't a bad person, he is certainly unusual. She glances down at the red gem on her own necklace. Elsewhere, a young man with dark hair tosses in bed, thinking he's hungry, but deciding to ignore it. The young man's green eye glares from under the covers as he sighs in annoyance. Marian waits for someone by a fountain in a bright town square. A voice calls out Jen, and she turns to wave with a happy smile. A cloaked figure with dark hair steadily walks toward her across the cobblestone. The hooded man approaches, remarking that he can tell what her expression is from a distance. He reveals his annoyed green eyes, telling her not to contact him when he's sleeping. Marian beams, excitedly saying she wanted to eat something nice with him. She explains that he's a homebody who also needs to study, and he just sighs in response. Marian pulls down his hood, revealing the unamused face of the dark-haired young man. She gazes at him with sparkling eyes, telling him he's as handsome as she expected. He scolds her for pulling off his hood, but she argues she barely sees his face during the day. She looks at him earnestly, questioning why he would hide such pretty eyes. The young man changes the subject, asking why she didn't bring money if she was hungry. Marian admits she already ate, but it was at an uncomfortable formal place. The young man's expression darkens as he begins to understand what she means. Marian looks on, a bit confused by his sudden change in mood. He sighs, covering his face in exasperation. He groans in frustration, exclaiming, "That woman again." Later, the two sit at a table in a quiet restaurant, bathed in sunlight. The young man offers her a skewer, telling Jen to stop looking out the window and eat. He reminds her the skewers from this place are good and best eaten hot. He comments on her appetite, and she retorts she's making up for the food she couldn't eat earlier. Marian pushes a large piece of meat toward him, asking for a simple thank you since she is paying. She happily takes a large bite of a meatball skewer. With a blissful expression, she declares that hearty food is far better than fancy cuisine. The red-haired girl offers a skewer to the hooded man, warning she will eat it all if he doesn't take it back later. The red-haired girl, mid-bite, asks the hooded man if a certain woman called him and what happened this time. The hooded man's hand lightly taps on the table. The red-haired girl, looking serious, hesitates to speak. The red-haired girl reveals to the green-eyed hooded man that her mother is getting married again. Zen, the hooded man, puts a hand to his head in frustration, lamenting that he knew it and asking what kind of bum her mother is dating this time. The red-haired girl admits her mother's partner has a son a bit older than her, wondering if she should reveal his identity later. The red-haired girl thinks about her mother, a beautiful red-haired woman smiling happily with a blonde man, noting her mother might even break off the marriage on the wedding day. The red-haired girl reacts with a slight shock as Zen asks if her mother's new partner is a noble. Zen declares a low-ranking noble is better than eccentric artists, musing that he's not going into the henhouse to lay eggs. In chibi form, Zen agrees it's a good thing, while the red-haired girl chibi thinks the house will be peaceful during her mother's honeymoon, then asks about her mother's partner's son. Zen suggests the son might be a noble who treats her badly, but the red-haired girl quickly denies it. A radiant, smiling blonde man, Orion, appears in a flash of light. Orion smiles with a slight blush and a soft, glowing light. The red-haired girl, looking contemplative, wonders if the son is a peculiar person. Zen, looking smug, says she's calling him crazy again, while the red-haired girl Chibi denies it, admitting his gaze is a bit unusual. The hooded man suspects the new son is a pervert, which Chibi Marianne vehemently denies. The red-haired girl and Zen walk away from the table, footsteps tapping on the ground outside a building. The red-haired girl smiles at Zen, thanking him for the meal. The red-haired girl smiles shyly. Zen, with a stern gaze, thanks the red-haired girl for calling him suddenly. In chibi form, Zen reacts explosively, shouting that he knew the man with the perverted look must have done something, while the red-haired girl Chibi insists he's not that kind of person. The red-haired girl, smiling gently, asks Zen why he keeps using strange adjectives. The red-haired girl's cheek is gently touched by an unseen hand. The red-haired girl smiles, acknowledging Zen's advice to contact him immediately if anything happens. Zen, looking thoughtful, assures her he can handle counts or lower nobles. The red-haired girl gratefully thanks Zen, while a chibi purple-haired girl appears with a message to visit the website for more content, and a thought bubble reveals that this time her mother's partner is a duke. The red-haired girl, looking surprised, realizes that fast progress didn't mean a small-scale event. Elegant white statues with shimmering details suggest a grand and splendid wedding venue, true to her mother's taste. The red-haired girl observes the ornate ceiling, thinking her mother truly meant it when she said it would be fine without much. A chibi Marianne surrounded by coins and jewelry smiles, while a normal Marianne chibi expresses disappointment that her mother wasn't holding back. Marianne stands alone in a grand hall, wearing a light purple dress. Marianne glances back as Orion, the blonde man, hums thoughtfully, seemingly unaware of her presence. Orion muses to himself that the young duke came to check the hall in advance, and that he is also a party to this marriage. Marianne thinks it would be easier if they pretended not to notice each other, just as Orion, behind a pillar, shouts her name. Marianne flinches back in surprise as Orion loudly calls out to her. Marianne looks unamused. Orion beams, calling her my lady. In chibi form, Orion exclaims it's only been a week, and what luck to meet her there, while Marianne chibi looks annoyed and questions his statement. Orion, with a wide smile, explains he sent word through the crystal orb multiple times but received no reply. Marianne chibi reacts with a gasp of shock, remembering the crystal orb. Marianne realizes she thought the crystal orb was just a courtesy gift and left it somewhere on her desk, only now understanding he actually sent messages. Marianne, looking worried, wonders what to do now, fearing he will be offended if she tells him the truth. Orion, with a slightly concerned expression, wonders if the crystal orb broke and assures her it won't take long to repair. Marianne fidgets, preparing to confess the truth. Marianne admits she thought the crystal orb was merely a social courtesy from the ducal family and never imagined he'd use it to contact her, apologizing for her carelessness. Orion, looking at Marianne with a slight frown, questions how such an important matter could have no discussion, even if the schedule was rushed. Orion looks sternly, holding his white bow brooch. Marianne thinks of the word family with a contemplative gaze. Marianne thinks about her mother's remarriage. Marianne reflects that her mother's marriage is less about a new family and more about a new husband, acknowledging ducal rules. She apologizes to the young duke for ignoring the rules, but he quickly insists she misunderstood. He explains he was respecting her opinion, and she apologizes for the misunderstanding. The blonde young man wonders what kind of life she has lived to be so formal at her age. A footstep sounds as an older man in an ornate robe approaches, recognizing a familiar silhouette. The white-haired man smiles kindly, asking if they have both been well. A voice says she is always at peace with his grace, watching over her as an elegant woman walks away. The man congratulates them on the union of their houses, noting he often sees them with Lady Marian. He pats Orion's back, asking if this is the 5th time, which Marian confirms they've requested many times. A startled Orion insists it should be fewer, as Marian trails off awkwardly. She recalls one ceremony being cancelled because of a fight in the hall. Another time, the groom was arrested for tax evasion, so Marian concludes it's technically 3 times, as Orion despairs. The priest chuckles that he shouldn't have brought it up, adding that the number doesn't matter. He states the important thing is that 2 houses are joining on a good occasion. He remarks on their sibling-like closeness, assuring them of a peaceful home as they thank him. The priest takes his leave, promising to see them tomorrow as they bow. Orion laughs about the confusing day, and Marion thinks he probably needs some time alone. She tells the young duke that she'll be leaving now to prepare for the ceremony. A blushing Orion offers to escort her with a special surprise, but she firmly declines, citing his extravagant carriage. He insists this time is different, leaving Marion suspicious about what he's brought. With a flourish, he reveals a sleek, elegant black carriage. Orion stands proudly beside it, asking if it isn't quite different this time. Marion is surprised, noting the absence of knights and the completely different carriage. He beams, calling it the definition of plainness and asking her to ride with him. Marion realizes he took her words to heart, concluding the ducal house's etiquette is very strict. Orion gestures for her to enter, hoping she'll like the carriage's interior. The inside is revealed to be blindingly luxurious, and Marion is stunned he commissioned it. He happily explains the magic tower remodeled the last carriage to make it as modest as possible. Orion smiles, certain it will be a comfortable ride despite the short notice. A dumbfounded Marion wonders if she heard him right. She stares in disbelief, realizing he went to the magic tower for this. She thinks about the immense cost of commissioning the magic tower just to make a lavish carriage plane. He charmingly takes her hand, offering to escort her home safely. As he beams, her thought concludes with a resounding burst. Are all nobles this insane? A small chibi witch with purple hair encourages readers to support the creators. Arriving at her home, she exits the carriage and thanks the young duke for the ride. Orion smiles warmly, saying it was only natural to do for a lady. She smiles, asking him to just call her Marion, as she's tired of being called my lady. Orion is completely flustered by her request, while a confused Marion wonders what's wrong. She urges him to go home and prepare for tomorrow, and he is visibly touched by her concern. He agrees that she must prepare as well, and she quickly urges him to leave. Agreeing, Orion happily opens the carriage door to depart. He suddenly stops, his smile fading into a serious expression. He turns back, facing a confused Marion. His expression shifts to a brilliant smile as he softly calls out her new name, Marion. Her sparkling red eyes widen in response. He hastily tells her to get in and go, and the carriage rumbles away. Standing alone, Marion decides he's a very strange person. The scene shifts to reveal the magnificent and sprawling Duke Miller's estate. A white-haired man shouts instructions at a training ground. A knight rushes toward him, urgently calling for Vice Captain Vehan. The white-haired Vice Captain, Vehan von Miller, calmly asks about the commotion. A knight breathlessly reports the captain's early return, surprising Vehan. Vehan wonders if the meeting with the future stepsister went poorly. He and the other knights turn as a figure approaches. The young blonde Duke, Orion, walks confidently toward them. Orion strides past his knights without acknowledging them. Vehan watches him leave, completely bewildered. A crying knight asks Vehan if the captain's mood means training will be hell. Vehan observes that, contrary to their fears, the captain is in a very good mood. In his office, Orion fondly thinks about the lady. He smiles, deciding to call her by a new name from now on. Orion beams with pure joy, thinking our Marion. Vehan enters, noting that Orion seems to be in a good mood. Orion boasts that Marion was moved by his sincerity and impressed by the carriage. He glows with happiness, amazed at their now speaking informally. Vehan muses that people would faint if they saw the usually cold Duke so happy. In high society, where appearances are everything, Orion maintains a distant facade. Vehan reflects on Orion's reputation for being cold and indifferent. The current, smiling Orion is a stark contrast to his public image. Orion suddenly blames Vehan's weird advice for delaying his friendship with Marion. He angrily asks if Vehan realizes how burdened she felt, as Vehan finds the accusation strange. Orion gazes out the window, proudly declaring his new little sister is smart and capable. Vehan is shocked that Orion is already calling her my little sister. He realizes that gaining a family must be especially meaningful for Orion. A history of political factions is shown, the aristocratic Duke Hastings and the loyalist Duke Bolton. The neutral Duke Miller is introduced, symbolized by the scales of justice. The family's reclusive nature meant Orion Miller was always isolated. Having lost his mother at a young age, he was alone for a long time. A family to share his heart with was what Orion wanted most. Vehan watches Orion stretch happily, thinking he's not one to become such a softie. Marion is described as the spotlight-averse daughter of the famous Madame Liana. Vehan admits to himself that he's becoming quite curious about her. He asks Orion if he'll be able to see her at the wedding, but Orion feigns ignorance. Vahan clarifies he means Orion's sister, and the Duke's expression darkens. Winking, Vahan says he'd just like to say hello. Orion's hand clenches as he menacingly thinks, "You bastard!" An enraged Orion demands to know why Vahan wants to see his sister. Vahan nervously explains he was just curious about what she's like. Orion declares that the very thought is impure. He violently kicks Vahan out of the office, yelling at him to leave. Lying on the floor, Vahan concludes that Orion is a lost cause. Vahan sits up, utterly defeated by his captain's behavior. A portrait shows the Duke and Tatiana on their wedding day. Glimpses of smiling guests fill the wedding hall. Marion stands beside another young woman, both looking on with apprehension. The brown-haired woman turns to Marion, remarking how amazing her mother is. The woman, Rainy Aroke, tells Marion she's never seen such a grand wedding. Marion nervously agrees, admitting it's her first time seeing such lavishness. A small, red-haired girl feels suffocated by the extravagant wedding ceremony. Her brown-haired friend agrees that only Madame Titi could host such a glamorous event. The brown-haired girl turns, asking her friend why she didn't invite Jen. The red-haired girl explains she couldn't force him to come, especially since he dislikes her mother. Her friend asks what Jen said about her new stepbrother, recalling he was angry about Madame Titi's remarriage. They recall Jen's description of a filthy rich man with perverted eyes who spends money on strange things. Annoyed, the red-haired girl wishes he would clear up his misunderstanding. She insists to her friend Leanie that Jen is simply misunderstanding the situation. She dismisses the importance of who someone is, but Leanie insists that this time, it matters. The red-haired girl's attention is caught by a beautiful blonde person staring directly at her. That same blonde boy waves with a brilliant smile, revealed to be her new brother. She breaks into a cold sweat as his cute, chibi form beams at her. Panicked, she grabs Leanie's hand, desperately asking to borrow money to compensate him. Leanie sheepishly explains that a maid accidentally stepped on and broke a communication orb. The red-haired girl blames herself for not maintaining it and promises to pay her back. Lenny smiles knowingly at her friend's predicament. With a cascade of gold coins behind her, Lenny is revealed to be from a nouveau riche mining family. The red-haired girl hugs her friend in gratitude, as Lenny declares money can solve anything. Lenny leans in, suggesting she use her new rich brother's money to put him in his place. The red-haired girl looks on with a calculating glint in her eyes. The scene shifts to the grand cathedral where the wedding takes place. At the altar, a red-haired bride and a brown-haired groom receive a blessing for their union. The priest concludes the ceremony, wishing them infinite blessings for their future together. Guests murmur amongst themselves as the wedding proceeds. Later, Leanie complains the bishop's speech was far too long, but her friend notes he came personally. Leanie explains, the papacy sent the bishop to curry favor with the neutral house miller. The red-haired girl realizes Leanie's annoyance is directed at someone else, not the bishop. Her friend identifies the person as Bertain Grimia, a silver-haired young man. A profile details Bertain's reputation as the youngest holy knight, admired for his skill and handsome looks. The narration reveals that Leanie despises Bertain bitterly. Lenny clenches her fist, declaring her hatred for toadies who cling to authority. A flashback shows Bertain cheerfully confiscating items from students, simply following a professor's orders. The bride, now in a different dress, announces she is going to see her daughter. The red-haired girl stands alone, looking hesitant. An elderly bishop greets her, asking if he should call her Miss Miller now. The blonde boy suddenly appears beside her, greeting Bishop Vincent with a smile. He expresses his joy at being able to congratulate them in person. Bishop Vincent compliments Marion's maturity, making her suspicious of his sudden praise. The young lord chimes in, gushing over how clever Marianne is, much to her annoyance. The bishop and the young lord laugh heartily, celebrating the joyous occasion together. The bishop then mentions there's someone he'd like to introduce, who is Marion's age. He beckons the person forward, telling them to come and greet her. Bertain steps forward and introduces himself as the heir to the House of Gremia. The blonde young lord formally greets Sir Gremia for the first time. Marion introduces herself as Marion Burton, daughter of Madame Tatiana, causing the young lord to react. The young lord looks utterly confused by her use of the Burton surname. With a sly look, he notes that she isn't using the Miller surname yet. The bishop praises them as a fine pair and suggests they share tea sometime. The young lord steps forward, declaring that it's inappropriate to arrange meetings for her. He pulls Marion behind him protectively, insisting that she has her studies to focus on. A blonde boy lectures a smiling white-haired man, telling him a holy knight should be at the practice grounds, but the man replies that assisting the bishop is also his duty. The white-haired man politely accepts the young lord's advice, while the boy mutters for him to protect only the bishop. Marion watches in shock from a distance, wondering if the young lord is making a political move with the papacy to keep his house neutral. The blonde young duke, Orion, glares angrily, furious that someone would try something with Marion and thankful he followed her. Orion intercepts Marion, suggesting she wait to see her mother, and a surprised Marion hesitantly agrees. He then offers to escort her to change into her reception dress, but she flusteredly insists it's not necessary. A triumphant Orion flashes a brilliant, sparkling smile. He leans closer, telling Marion that since they're now officially family, he wants her to try calling him brother. He beams with eager anticipation, his eyes sparkling. A shocked Marion thinks his request to be called Brother Orion is far too sudden. Marion grimaces in discomfort at the thought of calling him brother, while a hopeful Orion watches her reaction. Seeing her recoil, he acknowledges that it must still feel awkward for her. As he waits expectantly, a stunned Marion awkwardly thanks him, and he replies that it's nothing. Orion beams with pure joy, surrounded by a floral aura. Bang, a maid calls out in alarm as Marion flees down the hall. Marion shudders, wrapping her arms around herself. She frantically looks for an emergency exit, exclaiming that she's got goosebumps. The scene shifts to the brown-haired woman, Rainia, holding a cookie and declaring that they are now a perfect pair. Marion, now in a pink gown, laughs awkwardly as Rainia reminds her of her new high status. Rainia winks happily, adding that she now has money. In another scene, a man named Lenny is told by a woman in pink that he didn't befriend her for her status, though she admits power is nice. As chibi versions of the girls eat, Rainia laughs about putting jerks in their place, and Marion notes her friend is also a noble. Whisper. Rainia leans in conspiratorially, telling Marion she's already drawn up a plan. The two young women share a mischievous smile. A fork pierces a cookie, as narration explains that the Rainia family, from a line of merchant upstarts, has always been looked down on. Marion and Rainia eat cookies together on a sunlit balcony. The white-haired man approaches, offering to get samples for Lady Burton and Lady Locke as the two girls greet him. The grand, opulent hall stands empty and waiting. The white-haired man advises a group of young ladies, including Marion, to leave a good impression on the powerful Miller dukedom. Rainia clenches her fist in anger, thinking he should stick to praying instead of political scheming. The man sweats as Marion and a fiery Rainia stare him down, with Marion calling her friend Lenny. The white-haired man laughs nervously, thinking that Jen must have been very annoyed. Marion imagines herself as a grim, hooded figure just trying to survive the day, while a chibi panel shows various characters sharing in their mutual suffering. Looking out from the balcony, a voice remarks on how late it's gotten. The white-haired man smiles, announcing he must leave to greet others. A group of young noblewomen are startled by something. The white-haired man approaches a group of blushing ladies, saying he has a question, while Marion notes her friend Lenny only cares about money. Lenny states that money is consistent, as long as it's not counterfeit. Marion smiles, thinking her friend is remarkably consistent. Orion happily appears, calling out Marion's name. He tells a curious Marion he has someone for her to meet. Orion formally introduces the white-haired man as the vice captain of the Blue Knights. The vice captain smiles warmly as a proud Orion thinks to himself that Loon is of desert immigrant origin. Loon expresses his honor at meeting someone so famous, leaving a confused Marion to stammer a hello. Marion introduces herself as Marion Burton, while Orion watches her with a somber look. Standing with Marion, Loon reminds her that the banquet is over and the reception has begun. Marion glances back with a serious, thoughtful expression. Orion looks away, touching the back of his neck with a slightly flustered smile. Marion proudly reintroduces herself as Marion Miller. Orion is visibly moved by her words. Marion explains her past as an emotional Orion listens. She then prepares to introduce her friend, Rainia Locke, happily introduces herself. Rainia declares herself Marion's best friend, and Orion recognizes her prestigious family name. He hopes she'll remain close to his sister. Marion is completely baffled by his possessiveness. Rainia cheekily asks if it isn't obvious. She asserts that Marion is her best friend. Crackle. A silent rivalry sparks between them. Sighing, Marion feels a headache coming on. A couple announces their departure, but the man has a message for Marion. Orion informs Marion her mother is leaving and offers help. Marion declines, saying her mother can manage alone. She nervously hopes her mother isn't packing too much for another potential departure. Orion calls her name, as Marion finds her mother's actions strange. Marion turns to him, listening intently. He asks about her luggage, confusing her. She asks why her luggage matters, piquing his concern. Rainia confirms to Orion that Marion has belongings. A horrified realization dawns on Orion. Orion imagines a destitute Marion while she realizes he's completely misunderstood. Marion calls out to the young lord. She firmly states she won't move in. Orion is stunned into silence. A crushed Orion asks her why. She wonders why he looks so disappointed. A brief image of a happy family flashes by. She insists there's no hidden reason. She explains she'll be living in the academy dorms. He pleads, reminding her their family now, a memory of children happily going home with their mother, appears. Marion watches another family leave together. She insists on staying at the dorms for her studies. He argues for family life, but she prioritizes her studies. Puffed Rania laughs at Orion's comical disappointment. He laments hiring new servants for them in vain. Marion apologizes, comforting herself that at least she still has her mother. As Orion sighs, the white-haired vice captain watches. The vice captain cheerfully notes, half the new staff will be fired. Marion is shocked, as Loon asks if some of the hires weren't children. Horrified, Marion declares she will take them. Rania proudly offers to employ them at her merchant guild. Marion worries, but her friend waves it off. Rania takes a jab at Orion, promising to pay their tuition. Orion is relieved, but utterly defeated by Rania. The scene shifts to a starry night at the mansion. Marion thanks Rania for the ride home. Rania calls her name, and Marion turns back. From a carriage, Rania warns Marion to stay on guard. Rania speculates about the Duke's intentions, but Marion scoffs at the idea. Marion smiles brightly amidst a backdrop of lush greenery. A smiling maid named Dina welcomes Marion back to the house. Deanna reports that Marion's mother returned drunk, prompting Marion to go check on her. Click. Marion quietly peeks through a doorway, looking for her mother. She finds her mother sitting by the window with a bottle and calls out to her. A radiant Liana happily welcomes her daughter home. Marion questions her mother's dangerous perch, but Liana says she's just in a great mood. Liana asks if the crowded wedding was too much for Marion. Marion reassures her that only her mother's happiness matters, and Liana agrees she loves the spotlight. Marion gently tucks her sleeping mother into bed. Her mother murmurs her name as Marion thinks about how drunk she is. A tender memory of a younger Marion and her mother plays out. Marion's expression hardens with resolve. She thinks to herself that this is the last time. She wonders if her mother's behavior means she truly cares for the Duke. Marion gently wishes her mother a good night's sleep. The scene shifts to maids loading luggage onto a carriage. Liana, dressed to leave, asks Marion one last time to come with her. Marion declines, preferring the dorms and wishing to avoid the Miller family. Liana gently touches her daughter's face in a soft moment. Liana says a final take care as Marion looks on, flustered. Marion suddenly realizes that something isn't right. Her eyes gleam with a sudden, sharp understanding. Liana waves a cheerful goodbye, suitcase in hand. From the carriage window, her mother gives her a final smiling wave. Marion waves back, her expression thoughtful and uncertain. Later, at the academy, Marion finally reads a long-awaited document. She celebrates excitedly, having received the professor's letter of recommendation. In a meeting, Marion is surprised her professor noticed she was deliberately hiding her true abilities. Crash! A young man bumps into her, sending her papers flying. The documents scatter across the hallway floor. A frustrated chibi Marion laments that her organized papers are now a mess. The man reaches down, apologizing for not looking where he was going. He asks if she's all right, and Marion recognizes Trevor Barrel, a famous student. Trevor flashes a charming smile. He hands her the gathered papers, revealing he's researching the same topic. Marion is surprised to learn his topic is the Land of Death. She finds his choice unexpected, thinking he'd pick something more popular. Trevor is a top-ranked student rumored to be adopted by a count. Marion is shocked that such a popular and admired student would even know who she is. Trevor proposes they be good rivals and shakes her hand. After their strange meeting, Marion calls for Lenny and walks away. She finds Rania, her friend Lenny, gazing out a large window. Lenny asks if there's something outside as they both stare with curiosity. Lenny suddenly gasps, pointing at something amazing she spotted. Marion looks confused, seeing only a rather plain carriage outside. As Marion dismisses it, Lenny frantically insists it's no ordinary carriage. Lenny excitedly explains the carriage is made of rare, magic-imbued ebony wood. She continues her praise, marveling at the fine bloodline of the horses. Gushing over the coachman's noble bearing, Lenny is completely starstruck while Marion looks on, unimpressed. Marion watches her friend dash off to find a similar model, remarking on her boundless energy. Two men in formal attire, one with white hair and another with brown, stand smiling by the carriage. Marion's expression becomes serious, as she stares ahead. The men approach, extending an invitation for tea from the young duke, but Marion thinks it feels more like an abduction. A thought bubble shows a chibi Orion struggling with his studies, and Marion understands who's behind this. She sighs, thinking she just wanted to focus on her exams. As Marion looks up, a voice informs her that someone has been waiting for a long time. The luxurious black and gold carriage waits on a city street. Now inside the carriage, a resigned Marianne muses that she ended up riding in it after all. She leans back with a deep sigh. Marianne recalls her dazzling mother and then her frustrating encounter with her new brother, who is pestering her for tea. The white-haired man walks beside a reluctant Marianne, cheerfully announcing that the young duke will be pleased. From a high window, someone watches as Marianne is escorted to the carriage. In another location, a girl with light brown hair calls out to someone. She walks over, asking if the task at hand is difficult. Annoyed, she finds a boy sleeping with a book over his face and yells at him. As she demands he get up, a muffled voice from under the book complains that she's being noisy. Crossing her arms, she remarks that moving a carriage isn't hard if there's a wizard inside. A black-haired boy in a hood looks up from his book, deducing the magic must be from an intermediate wizard. The light brown-haired girl connects the dots to the Miller family and worries that Marion has gotten involved with a difficult opponent. She questions the boy, annoyed by how quickly he answers anything related to Marion. He nonchalantly explains it's because of the son of Madame Titi's remarried husband. With a confident smile, the girl declares Marion will handle it herself since they're family now. The black-haired boy suddenly summons a massive, glowing magic circle, startling the girl. She stares in disbelief, realizing he's using magic to track Marion to a coffee house. He ignores her, continuing to manipulate the glowing magical orb. The magic flares intensely as she shouts his name, trying to stop him. Utterly exasperated, she pinches the bridge of her nose, thinking the situation is driving her crazy. She tries to convince herself she's not at fault, as there is no time to stop him. Knock knock. Her panicked thoughts are interrupted by a knock at the door. The scene shifts to an elegant, sunlit private room in a coffee house. Orion sits at the table with a pleasant smile, ordering black coffee. He then asks Marion for her order, and she flatly requests orange juice. Orion calls her choice cute, while she internally admits she only ordered it because he looked like he wanted it. A chibi Orion agonizes over wanting orange juice and chocolate pudding, feeling it's too childish for an older brother. A server brings their order to the table. As they sit, Orion asks Marion if it's usually dismissal time for school. She explains that she just left early today, as students are staying later to prepare for exams. Marion mentions her best friend, Rainy Locke, shown in a cheerful chibi portrait. Orion recognizes the name and internally questions if he should investigate the friends of his new stepsister. Clearing his throat, he changes the subject, asking about her promotion exam. He begins to describe a genius who was admitted early and transferred from a public school to the Imperial Academy. He offers to assign this supposed genius as her personal tutor. A helpful diagram clarifies that Orion is talking about himself, a fact Marion apparently doesn't realize. Looking slightly suspicious, Marion asks him what he's trying to say. Flustered, Orion quickly backpedals, saying studying should be done alone, even as he thinks his tutoring idea is excellent. He tries again, arguing that tutoring can improve skills, prompting Marianne's eyes to widen as she finally understands his true intention. Orion worries about the Grand Duke's prestige, while Marion senses his concern is less about her grades and more about her status. Marion notes the family's need for clear results, as Orion awkwardly insists they simply want to help their new sister. Deciding she's had enough, Marion announces she's leaving to study, shocking a bewildered Orion. As Marion walks off to prepare for her exam, a stunned chibi Orion is left utterly speechless. Marion politely declines the tutoring offer, causing Orion to panic, realizing she has completely misunderstood his intentions. Leaping to his feet, a desperate Orion calls out for Marion to wait. Defeated, Orion mutters that grades aren't everything in life. A brilliant flash of golden light suddenly envelops the room, startling them both. Orion shouts for Marion to get back and hide, but she stands her ground, facing the light. A hooded, black-haired wizard appears, identified as Jen, wielding a glowing magic circle. The wizard demands the girl be sent to him, and Marion recognizes him with a shocked whisper, "Jen." Orion pulls Marion behind him, vowing to protect her from the evil wizard. Much to her amusement, realizing Jen is targeting her while she's unguarded, Marion panics as he repeats his demand. Marion quickly intervenes, calming Jen down by introducing her new older brother, which makes Orion blush. Jen glares, remembering Marion calling someone a pervert, as two other men watch from a doorway. The men look on in confusion as Marion frantically denies ever saying such a thing. A voice calls her name, and Marion turns around, startled. A blushing Orion shyly asks if it's true she called him her older brother. Horrified, Marion shouts, "Absolutely not," completely flustered by the misunderstanding. A servant nervously presents a cup of tea, breaking the tense silence. The group sits in a deeply awkward silence, the air thick with tension. Annoyed, Marion thinks about how awkward the situation is, internally sighing that she wasn't the one who caused it. The white-haired man and Jen exchange a knowing smirk, which only infuriates Marion further. The white-haired man silences Jen, explaining that Marion was going to handle the situation later. Marion questions why the white-haired man is even there, and he awkwardly avoids her gaze. Lenny appears, grabbing the white-haired man and telling him to take responsibility for calming Jen down since he failed to restrain him as she asked. Orion asks Marion if she knew the white-haired man all along. The white-haired man explains he knows Marion through the well-known Jen, whom he pretends not to know in public. A fond memory shows the four friends, Jen, Marion, the white-haired man, and Lenny posing together. Marion sheepishly confirms that she knows them, though the situation remains complicated. In a flashback, the white-haired man, Bertine, finally gives up, trying to reason with an angry Jen. The scene shifts to a grand building, as narration notes that Bertine won't be much help right now. Click. A door opens into an ornate, sunlit hallway. Lenny stands alone in the hall, arms crossed in thought. A brilliant idea suddenly strikes her, and her face lights up with a wide smile. She excitedly calls out to Marion, who is engrossed in her studies. Lenny and Marion discuss the upcoming exam, with Lenny confirming the second part is based on their chosen research topic. Marion reveals her topic is the Land of Death and plans to use the Ducal Library, an idea Chibi Orion heartily approves of. Narration describes the Land of Death as a mysterious, dangerous region swarming with monsters. Because of the danger, most people now have little interest in the desolate land. Her conversation is interrupted as Trevor Barrel approaches, calling her name. He cheerfully asks how her exam went, prompting a suspicious whisper from Lenny. Marion replies she did fine, and Trevor expresses his relief before starting to ask another question. The scene transitions to a view of a stately stone building. Marion arrives at the grand entrance of Duke Miller's estate. A new white-haired guide with tan skin welcomes her, offering to lead her to the library where materials are waiting. He kindly reassures her that Orion is away, so she can relax. Marion offers a quiet thank you as she walks toward the ornate golden doors. The guide leads a somber Marion through the lavish halls of the estate. Marion's expression is one of grim determination as she follows him. Marion sits beside her red-haired friend, Lenny, looking deeply contemplative. As an off-screen voice calls out, Lenny, she internally panics, wondering if Trevor Barrel somehow knows her real name. Marion reassures her, confidently stating that her identity has been flawlessly protected. Still concerned, Lenny ponders why Trevor is suddenly acting so familiar with her. The scene shifts to Marion, her hair now appearing red, and the tan, white-haired guide, as he announces their arrival at the Grand Library. A proud Chibi guide watches as an impressed Chibi Marion marvels at how spacious the library is. She is shocked to discover a perfectly compiled collection of materials on the Land of Death has been prepared for her. Feeling the weight of their expectations, Marion worries about the effort required to meet them. She sits at a desk and begins to read through the extensive research papers. In a cute Chibi moment, Marion admits to the guide that she's starting to feel a little intimidated. She promises to work hard, to live up to their support, while the guide listens silently. He correctly assesses that she is the type of person who feels compelled to repay any kindness shown to her. He continues, clarifying that the reason they've gone to such lengths is not because of her grades. The white-haired guide smiles thoughtfully, cryptically adding, for now. An ornate red and gold carriage travels down a road, with a dark-clothed figure sitting on the driver's seat. At a lavish estate, a butler informs someone off-screen that a guest is waiting, who then asks who it is. The butler announces Lady Marion's arrival to a startled young man with blonde hair. The blonde man's face lights up with pure joy as he exclaims, "Marion!" The scene transitions past an elegant, sunlit window. The blonde man rushes through the hall, thinking there is one thing he hopes for. Marion turns in the hallway, asking what his earlier comment meant. She watches him with a neutral expression. Blushing, the blonde man nervously asks if she would be willing to stay for dinner. Marion looks back at him, her expression unreadable, as she considers the offer. He turns away with an awkward hand behind his head while she continues to observe him. At a dining table laden with a feast, he encourages Marion to eat her fill, explaining he prepared everything since he wasn't sure what she liked. A maid pours her a drink, and Marion looks on in surprise. Overwhelmed, Marion recalls accepting his dinner invitation and now wonders if she should have refused. She sits at the table, reasoning that it would be rude to decline a meal they went to so much trouble to prepare. Deciding to eat for the time being, she cuts into a piece of grilled meat. She feels pressured by the blonde man's intense stare, which she likens to someone checking if their new little sister is eating well. Marion asks if he was on his way back from official business, and he nervously stammers that he was. He then asks what brought her to the estate, and she explains she came to use the library to prepare for an exam. When asked if she came alone, Marion clarifies that Sir Rune was helping her. The blonde man's expression darkens in fury as he realizes Rune lied about being on sick leave, calling him a bastard under his breath. As a nearby maid giggles knowingly, Marion looks on in surprise. The maid continues to smile, seemingly amused by the situation. She gives a respectful bow before departing. Marion watches her leave, reflecting that everyone in the mansion looks at her with such warmth. She recalls how the staff smiled and greeted her warmly when she walked through the halls earlier. Alone at the long table, Marion sits with a somber posture. She feels that by comparison, she is the one who seems to be lacking in emotion. The blonde man gets her attention, politely excusing himself. He asks how she would feel about staying the night. With a bright smile, he offers her a room and mentions they even hired a new cook to make her a late-night snack. Marion is stunned, realizing they hired someone new entirely for her sake. She stares forward, processing his incredible generosity. Marion politely declines the offer, stating she doesn't really stay out overnight, leaving him looking disappointed. In a tilted panel, Marion considers the great lengths they are going to for her. She flashes back to an image of her red-haired mother in a wedding dress, thinking the marriage is her mother's business and hers alone. Marion looks at the blonde man and asks what he meant by his earlier words. She recalls that once her mother's relationship ends, her connection to his family will disappear. Looking downcast, the blonde man softly speaks her name. Marion reflects internally, surprised at how much she is speaking her mind. A blushing, stunned blonde man listens as she agrees to see him at the wedding tomorrow. He turns back with a brilliant, relieved smile, happy she agreed. Tap. She cuts into a piece of meat on her plate. He starts to speak again, making her pause with a napkin to her lips. He sincerely explains that he believes their connection is more than just their parents' relationship. He acknowledges across the vast table that becoming family wasn't their choice. Reaching out his hand, he proposes they accept their new reality and try to get to know one another. He offers his hand with a warm, hopeful expression. He reveals they've met before, leaving a chibi Marion completely baffled. He specifies they met at the New Year's ball, which she realizes was her very first. She fondly remembers her mother looking beautiful and excited for that same event. A flashback shows a tiny Marion eagerly asking to go with her laughing mother. She doesn't recall speaking to anyone, and he confirms they didn't talk directly. In a memory, he recalls watching her from a distance at the ball. He remembers her as the only person clapping for her mother's performance while everyone else remained silent. He smiles, fondly recalling the huge, genuine smile on her face as she applauded. He also remembers her happily enjoying the food without caring what others thought. It was fascinating for him to watch such a small child freely exploring the grand hall. He explains he found it amazing that she enjoyed the ball in her own way. Mortified, Marion realizes her behavior was simply due to her lack of proper etiquette back then. He continues, explaining he was drawn to her because she had no expectations of him. She listens intently as he says she never prejudged him like everyone else did. With a heartfelt smile, he admits that's why he felt at ease and wanted to be kind to her. A flashback shows him reading a letter, having waited a very long time for her. He smiles with pure excitement, thinking he can't wait to finally meet her. 3 days later, her exam preparations are progressing smoothly. Thanks to rare materials and Sir Rune's expertise, the Duke's library is the perfect study space. Her focus is broken as she notices one small problem. The blonde man is constantly lingering nearby while she tries to study. He perks up instantly when she speaks, eagerly asking if she needs help. She explains that Sir Rune has gone to the training grounds, leaving them alone. When she asks about his own duties, he brushes them off as not urgent. He blushes, wondering if he is being a distraction to her. She bluntly confirms that yes, his mere presence is distracting. He suggests moving to a farther corner, but she decides to stop being polite. Frustrated, she yells at him to leave and says she will call if she needs help. With a smirk, he declares that her hovering is making him uncomfortable and walks away. Determined, she resolves to put the distraction aside and focus on her studies. Leaving the estate late at night, she realizes she completely lost track of time. She looks up in awe at beautiful glowing lights in the darkness, wondering if they're fireflies. As she continues walking down the path, a hooded figure watches her from the bushes. The figure silently reaches up to his hood. The man reveals his face. It's Jen, and he softly calls her name. As he dramatically removes his cloak, she asks why he took so long to arrive. She eyes him with suspicion, certain he skipped dinner while waiting for her, though he denies it. Walking together, they discuss dinner, and he states his preference for meat. Jen insists Marion eat the food he bought specifically for her. At a wooden table, she serves him a plate and asks why he isn't eating. He reveals he already ate at the Duke's estate, angrily wondering what he is plotting. Marion smiles fondly, thinking that how she gets along with her new stepbrother is her own business. Jen warns her that the Duke is a strange guy and she shouldn't let her guard down. She reassures him with a smile, while he admits it's still nice to see her eat so well. Marion internally compares the luxurious food at the estate with this meal, finding more comfort sharing simple food with Jen. With arms crossed, she wonders if this comfort stems from their shared childhood. Jen asks if she has something on her mind, catching her off guard. He asks if she is still being tracked, explaining it's for her protection and offering to stop, but she says she doesn't mind. As Jen offers to listen, a chibi Marion internally questions his sincerity. She recalls the blonde man's proposal that they accept becoming family and try to get to know one another. When Jen dismisses her thoughts with a so what, she wishes family could be more special. Marion worries that it would hurt if her only family and the Duke's family were considered the same, ultimately accepting his view if that's how he feels. He questions her, asking if the young Duke's words really make sense. He presses further, asking if she truly wants to play family with him. She looks downcast, admitting she doesn't really know how she feels. Marion confesses that the young Duke and the people around him make her feel flustered. To her own surprise, she admits to herself that she doesn't feel bad about it. Jen stares back at her, remaining silent. He startles her with a strange question. If he and the Duke were drowning, who would she save? Stunned, Marion hears him clarify that neither he nor Orion Miller can swim, and replies she'd find someone else to save them both. Annoyed, he pinches her cheek, insisting she should have just said she'd save him. He asks if she sees him her lifelong companion, the same as a man she just met, prompting her to reluctantly agree she'll save him first. Satisfied, he declares she should have said so from the start, leaving a chibi Marion to wonder why he's so competitive. As Jen puts on his hood to leave, she asks if he's going already. Marion looks up at him with a surprised expression. She holds up her hand, showing him a ring on her finger, and asks if this is why he came before saying goodbye. Marion smiles to herself, finding his shy reaction cute. Admiring the ring, she notes that it fits perfectly, and thinks he's surprisingly thoughtful. The ring reminds her of a necklace Lenny gave her a few days ago. Seeing Jen look on, she feels like everyone is cheering for her. With renewed determination, she vows to do her best to repay their support. The scene shifts to an exam hall as narration explains the test is extremely difficult, with a 2-year ban for those who fail. The narration continues, stating that only nobles or special class students typically attempt the exam. A girl with a light brown ponytail startles Marion by saying hello. The girl smiles, noting she's never seen Marion before, and asking about her class. Flustered, Marion realizes she should have expected curiosity about her sudden appearance. She answers that she is from the General Division, Class C, which the girl recognizes as Trevor's class. The girl expresses surprise that someone besides Trevor Barrel is taking the exam from their division, and asks for Marion's name. Marion gives her temporary fake name, Marion Hopin, leaving the other girl puzzled. As other students whisper, she explains she's a commoner with no sponsor and mediocre grades. Seeing the girl's interest wane, Marion correctly assumes she's no longer considered special. The girl awkwardly wishes her luck and walks away. Marion dismisses the whispers, thinking she only cares about graduating early. She focuses on her desk, ready to begin the exam. Glancing at the ring on her hand, she briefly wonders if she should take it off. Although the ring is meant to aid concentration, she feels uneasy using it for the exam as a nearby door creaks open. A confident, brown-haired young man in a uniform enters the room holding a book. As the newcomer, Trevor, is greeted by other students, Marion looks over in confusion. Trevor greets Marion with a friendly wave, startling her. Noting his recent friendliness, she hesitantly greets Trevor back. Leaning in with a smile, Trevor asks if she prepared well for the exam. She admits she's a little worried she couldn't prepare as much as she wanted to. Although Trevor smiles kindly, Marion gets a strange, uncomfortable feeling from him. A short-haired blonde girl approaches their desk and asks Trevor if she can borrow a pen. Trevor offers a pen case while Marion, already writing, thanks him. The blonde girl smiles as she accepts the pen, leaving a chibi Marion looking puzzled. Trevor glances over, his attention drawn to the golden pen Marion is using. He compliments her on her nice pen, and she looks up from her paper. She explains it was a gift from her friend Rainia Locke and he notes he's seen them together. A nearby girl with a brown ponytail gasps in shock at the mention of Rainier Locke's name. As whispers fill the room, Marion overhears that she's the one Rainier Locke went all in on for an exam betting pool with a huge payout. A feeling of dread washes over Marion as she realizes what a payout implies. She recalls Raina's knowing smirk, realizing her friend is gambling illegally again, using her name to raise the stakes. Other students murmur that if Rainier Locke bet everything on Marion, she must be highly skilled. The whispers continue as another student notes Rainier didn't even bet on Trevor, the top candidate. A chibi Marion desperately wishes for her quiet, peaceful happiness to return. A student remarks that she'll need a strong fighting spirit if she wants to be promoted. The proctor addresses the room, stating that the academy provides this opportunity for excellent students who seek even greater growth. He warns them all that failing the exam results in a 2-year ban on retaking it. The proctor concludes his speech by reminding them that failure costs them their honor, and that they are all competitors. As a large clock strikes the hour, the proctor officially begins the exam. The proctor paces between the desks as the students begin to write. Marion finds the proctor's watchful gaze to be incredibly nerve-wracking. Taking a deep breath, she closes her eyes, feeling a sense of relief. As she starts to write, a vision of the young blonde duke appears behind her. Suddenly, a flash of dark energy strikes her, and she questions what's happening. A sharp pain pierces her head, causing her hand to scribble erratically on the page. The proctor turns and asks what's wrong as Marion looks up, her eyes glowing red. She quickly brushes it off with a smile, claiming her hand was just shaking from nervousness. An inner voice scoffs, questioning how she'll manage if she can't handle this much. She wonders about the sudden headache, something that has never happened before. A student shouts for the professor, pointing out that something is wrong with Trevor as Marion looks on in shock. Students yell for Trevor Barrel to wake up as he slumps over his desk, blood dripping from his nose and mouth. The professor rushes to the unconscious Trevor, and amidst the students' panic, he declares an emergency and suspends the exam. Stunned by the turn of events, Marion can only think, "What?" Clutching her head, she tries to process what just happened in the exam hall. As students are ushered out, Marion overhears someone asking if anyone saw the supervisor, adding to her confusion. She recalls Trevor collapsing while bleeding black blood, shuddering as she wonders what happened. The proctor dismisses everyone, instructing them to return home and wait for further notice about the exam. Leaving the room, Marion overhears others worrying about the exam questions being changed and decides she needs to calm down. She stops in the hallway, a sudden feeling making her pause. Looking back, she sees a long-haired blonde girl staring intently at her. Marion stares back, confused by the unexpected attention. The blonde girl turns and walks away, leaving Marion still watching her with a puzzled expression. Marion wonders what that strange, intense look was all about. Outside the academy building, a familiar voice calls out Marion's name. Rainier Locke happily asks how the exam went, making Marion realize the incident was kept secret from outsiders. Rainier beams, confidently assuming Marion crushed the others in the exam and noting her friend's excitement. A chibi Marion cheekily asks if Rainier is so excited because of the bet. Marion confronts a startled Rainier, asking if it's true she went all in on her. Rainier admits the bet was a factor, but insists her main motivation was supporting Marion. Marion gives her friend a suspicious, unconvinced stare. Marion points out that Rainier was the one who started the entire betting pool to begin with. Appreciating the support, Marion asks Rainier not to gamble on her, receiving a reluctant promise in return. Rainier nervously asks about the money from the bet, but Marion informs her that no one is going to win. A confused Rainier asks why, and Marion explains that the exam wasn't even finished. As Marion begins to recount the events, Rainier suddenly clutches her head in pain and stumbles forward. A wave of dizziness hits Rainier as she realizes her headache has returned. In a large study, the hooded Jen watches over the unconscious Rainier as she rests on a couch. Rainier groans as she slowly begins to wake up. Marion and a white-haired boy rush to Rainier's side, with the boy calling her Marion as he asks if she's awake. Looking at Marion, a disoriented Rainier asks, "Rennie, how did this?" as Jen tells her to keep resting. She then looks over and recognizes the hooded figure as Jen. Jen offers Marion a glass of water, which she accepts, reassuring him she is fine now. Rainier thanks the white-haired boy, Bertine, for being there as he expresses his relief that she looks better. Jen reaches a hand toward Rainier's forehead to check her temperature. He gently places his hand on her forehead, confirming that her fever seems to have gone down. Rainier asks Marion what happened to her, calling her Rennie, and Marion explains that she suddenly collapsed. Rainier recalls having another sudden headache, just like the one she experienced in the exam hall. She finds the incident unsettling, wondering how she could collapse so suddenly when she isn't frail. Jen interjects, pointedly asking if there was something wrong with the exam hall itself. Marion explains that Trevor Barrel collapsed in the exact same way, leaving everyone in the room surprised. Rainier confirms that Trevor's sudden collapse caused the entire exam to be suspended. Jen questions how Marion knew Trevor was taking the exam, and she reveals Rainier had the applicant list for her bet. Marion realizes Rainier needed the list to place her bet, and suspects Bertine knew but pretended not to. Marion asks if news of the incident has spread, but Jen confirms this is the first he's hearing of Trevor's collapse. Bertine deduces Trevor's condition must have been serious, and Rainier confirms he was coughing blood. She explains that he was rushed away without treatment, and she doesn't know what happened after that. Jen's green eyes narrow as he contemplates the detail about coughing blood. He asks a crucial question: was it black blood? Rainier confirms that it was. Jen asks if Rainier is wearing the necklace he gave her, and she says he insisted she wear it at all times. A vision shows the necklace crumbling to dust in her hand against a backdrop of sharp thorns. Jen asks if she felt any unusual sensations before she collapsed. Rainier recalls feeling a brief headache during the exam, and again right before she fainted, and Jen seems to reach a conclusion. Marion exclaims that she knew it, declaring that it truly is a frightening world. As Bertine wonders how this could happen at the academy, a confused Rainier asks what they are all talking about. Jen reveals to a shocked Raina that the necklace she is wearing contains holy power. He elaborates that he also added a protection spell that strikes back if anyone tries to harm her. He explains that the necklace's holy power can counter curses, meaning the spell must have been activated. Jen concludes that the attack most likely occurred while she was in the exam hall. The horrifying realization dawns on Rainier that someone tried to curse her, and her thoughts immediately turn to Trevor. Rainier asks aloud if Trevor could have cursed her, but Marion finds it unbelievable. Marion doubts it was any of the other students, while Bertine suggests the attacker wants something from Rainier. Bertine asks if Trevor had ever spoken to her before, and Rainier says she can't recall any conversations with him. She then remembers one connection. The topic of their research project was the same. Jen remains silent, processing this new piece of information with a serious expression. Jen offers to trace the curse magic, asking Marion for her necklace. A tiny Marion worries about his reckless plan, but Jen insists Trevor attacked first. Jen offers reassurance as Rainier promises to handle any trackers, and Bertine cheerfully offers to help hide the body. As Rainier teases Bertine for being useful, a flustered Marion wonders what is happening. Bertine clarifies that he was mostly joking, but the situation is still very serious. He advises Marion to get checked at the temple, and she agrees to go soon. From behind a closing door, Rainier mutters that she was being completely serious. Rainier suggests Marion go home to rest, but Marion declines, saying she has somewhere to be. She explains that she must visit the Duke's palace, and a concerned Raina asks why. Marion smiles brightly, announcing that her mother is returning today. With determined steps, she walks through the Grand Ducal Palace. Marion sits at a large dining table opposite two blonde men. A beautiful red-haired woman joyfully greets her, exclaiming, "Marion, my daughter is home." Her mother immediately notices how pale she is, causing Marion to give a strained smile. Her mother chides her for staying up late for exams, and Marion wonders if it's that obvious. Marion knows her pallor is from the curse, but decides to keep it to herself for now. Her mother leads her toward the dining table, where a young blonde man waits. Her mother tells her to sit next to Orion, who pats the empty chair beside him with a smirk. Marion reluctantly agrees, sighing internally at having to sit with the little Duke again. As they begin their meal, a voice asks if she and Orion have grown closer. The older man, the Duke, remarks that his son Orion is a handful. Marion pauses, confused by his description of Orion. She realizes the Duke doesn't know his son at all, as Orion laughs nervously. Marion's mother sighs, telling the Duke not to even get her started about Marion. She explains that Marion's reserved nature makes it difficult to know what she's thinking. The Duke laughs it off and asks Marion about her favorite dessert. Marion says anything is fine, but her mother chimes in that Marion likes orange juice. Orion suddenly interjects, correcting her mother by revealing Marion's preference for black tea and savory desserts. He proceeds to list her eating habits in detail, noting her poor diet during exam season. Her mother and the Duke are left speechless by his detailed knowledge. Orion beams proudly, asking Marion if he got everything right. Marion smiles, pointing out that he was the one who asked for the orange juice. The Duke laughs heartily at their exchange, remarking how well they get along, which shocks them both. Flustered, Marian quickly changes the subject, asking her mother about her trip. Her mother gives a sly smile, implying her honeymoon was spent enjoying indoor activities, flabbergasting Marian and Orion. Marian thinks to herself that her mother is unbelievably bold, even in front of the Duke. She glances over with a subtle, knowing look. She watches Orion, relieved that the little Duke has finally calmed down. Later that night, her mother notes that Marian would have left if she hadn't been invited to stay. Marian sheepishly admits that she still feels uncomfortable in the Duke's palace. Her mother suddenly asks why Marian isn't wearing her special necklace. Reminding her that she always wore the gift from her friends, her mother asks if she lost it, but Marian claims it's just out for repairs. Her mother looks unconvinced, pointing out how Marian wore it every single day. Realization dawns on her mother as she asks if Marian knew about the necklace's protective spell, and Marian pretends that she did. Marian admits she had no idea, and her mother explains she didn't say anything because she knew Marian wouldn't wear it if she knew its value. Her mother explains that her friends only wanted to protect her, not to burden her. When asked what happened to it, Marian vaguely says they'll know after the repairs, wanting to avoid needless worry. Her mother gives her some serious advice. If something happens, always choose what's best for herself. She takes Marian's hand firmly, telling her not to worry about anyone else in that moment. The two share a quiet, heartfelt moment as her mother gently touches her face. Her mother asks her to at least promise to tell someone if anything happens, and Marian agrees. Her mother suggests telling Orion, if not her, leaving Marian to wonder why the little Duke. Her mother teases that they get along well, but a flustered Marian denies it. As she remembers Orion's charming smile, Marian is left blushing and speechless. Later, Marian asks her mother a question that has been on her mind. Can sometimes end up hurting people. Marian continues, wondering what happens when their hearts grow cold, leaving only emptiness. Her mother listens with a gentle, knowing smile. Marian admits she couldn't bear the pain of watching someone she cares for leave. Her mother calmly suggests that if she's so worried, she should just ask her again later. Seeing Marian's confusion, her mother clarifies her fear that getting close only leads to becoming strangers again. The question leaves Marian looking thoughtful and deeply affected. Yawning, her mother suddenly declares she's too tired and is going to sleep. She tells Marian to get some rest as well, and Marian quietly agrees. Lying in bed, Marian realizes she's scared of saying goodbye to the little Duke, and that this fear makes it hard to accept his sincerity, which saddens her. She laments that her mother fell asleep just as they were about to have a serious conversation. A memory surfaces of a younger Marian being called by name. Her mother once asked her how she would feel if she suddenly disappeared. In a panic, young Marian desperately clung to her mother, begging her to stay. Laughing, her mother hugged her tightly, reassuring her that it was only a joke. But the comforting memory is twisted by a terrifying vision of her mother chained in darkness, crying out her name. She remembers the fear of her mother truly disappearing one day. The thought of living without her was, and still is, too sad and scary to contemplate. Young Marian makes a grim resolution, thinking if everyone leaves, she'd rather. The memory jolts Marian in the present, a sudden realization striking her. She sits up in bed, a new determination on her slightly flustered face. Waking the next day, Marian feels refreshed and relieved that the curse has left no after effects. As she walks through a corridor, a familiar sound makes her pause. She sees Orion, casually holding a sword over his shoulder. Marian notes that the young Duke seems perfectly fine while he looks down with a blush. He then flashes a blindingly bright smile, much to a tiny, unimpressed Marian's chagrin. She sighs internally at the silly look on his face. A green-haired boy nearby looks utterly exhausted by Orion's boundless energy. Back at the academy, her friends inform her that rumors of Trevor's collapse are already everywhere. The atmosphere is tense, with both the magic tower and the temple investigating whether it was black magic or the work of heretics. Bertine sighs, expecting classes to be canceled as the investigation will not be quick. Marian is surprised to hear that even Count Amber and the headmaster were at a loss. Bertine explains that since Trevor was the Count's protege, the Academy cannot keep the incident quiet. Marian grows anxious, worrying that the situation is escalating and hoping she won't be implicated. She wonders aloud if there's anyone who can confirm that Trevor was the one who attacked her. Bertine slyly claims to be too busy for a definite answer, earning an annoyed glare from his friend. He then announces his intention to greet the bishop, surprising the two girls. The brown-haired girl winks, explaining that as a lock, she must make an appearance at the temple. A chibi Bertine cheerfully agrees to her plan. As Marian muses that it's probably business, Bertine looks confused by her reaction, asking what he did. Bertine offers to guide Raina, asking Marian to wait for them. Marian happily agrees, waving them off as Rania insists she can go by herself. Alone, Marian reflects on the temple's extravagance, feeling out of place and impressed by her friend's confidence. A person in elaborate black robes walks past, muttering about being tired of accommodating others. The robed woman turns, and Marian looks up in surprise as their eyes meet. A stern priestess questions Marian's presence, noting she doesn't appear to be a noble. The priestess adds that the temple isn't for just any family, prompting Marian to ask if she's a high-ranking noble. Marian thinks a true noble would have an attendant and explains she just came with a friend. The priestess presses Marian for her purpose, asking if she came to make a donation. She quickly dismisses her own question, acknowledging that many people visit the temple with secrets. Marian steers the conversation, asking if it's all right for the priestess to be standing around, which the woman finds to be a good question. The priestess sighs, complaining that the line for confession is endless and that her duty should have its limits. She stretches, remarking that everyone needs a break, and Marian sympathizes with her tiring task. The priestess hints she needs an assistant, and a smiling Marian cheekily volunteers. Before Marian can react, the priestess grabs her hands, saying all she has to do is listen. The priestess beams, promising to return in an hour or two to take over. As the priestess leaves, a stunned Marian is left alone in the corridor. Annoyed, Marian sits in the confessional, hoping no one arrives during the next couple of hours. She finds the confessional surprisingly cozy, a place she never imagined she'd be. She wonders if people genuinely find relief by sharing their secrets in this place. Reaching for her neck out of habit, she realizes she misses her necklace. She gazes at the ring on her finger, remembering it was a gift from Jen. Suspecting Jen placed other spells on it, she resolves that she should probably take it off. A man's voice from the other side of the screen startles her, announcing his presence to the priest. The man asks if the priest remembers his previous story, causing Marian to panic about being caught. He begins his confession by complaining about his lord's overwhelming assignments, confusing Marian. He recounts how the knights got a break when their sword-obsessed lord gained a younger sister. But now his lord is holed up in the library, creating new problems for his men. Leaning closer, Marian asks what kind of problem he's facing. The man explains that his lord is studying unusual books and making the knights test his findings. He reveals his lord is now obsessed with novels about younger sisters and is forcing his knights to act out the older brother's behavior to win her favor, leaving the man in despair. The knight complains that the sister just glares at him with contempt, while Marian internally mocks the ridiculous situation in novels. Trying to sound wise, Marian claims to understand but notes the story feels oddly familiar. The knight cries out in frustration, lamenting that the ineffective methods continue. Marian suggests he should resolve the root cause of the problem. She advises him to remove the source of the issue, but he declares it's impossible. The knight completely misunderstands, asking how he could possibly eliminate his lord's sister, leaving Marian speechless. A flustered Marian promises to try her best, thinking this is more like career counseling than confession. A bell suddenly rings, and the man notes that the time is up. The knight bids father farewell, and leaves as a drained Marian thinks how exhausting that was. Geeking out, Marian decides to hurry back before anyone else arrives. Her eyes widen in sudden, shocked recognition. She sees the knight walking away, wearing the distinct cape of the Order of Chevaliers. Marian finally realizes the eccentric young duke in the story was Orion, all along, as the knight despairs over his orders. A mischievous smile crosses her face as she decides to tell Orion to stop reading strange novels. Just as she leaves the booth, Bertine appears, asking if she was in the confessional. Bertine looks shocked, asking if she really heard the knight's confession, and Marian tearfully admits she didn't want to. A chibi Bertine says it's fine as long as she wasn't caught, and they agree to hurry back. As they walk, Bertine wryly compliments the knight's speaking skills before announcing their arrival to the priestess. Bertine introduces Marian to Rania and the priestess, who Marian now realizes is the same woman from before. Looking from a smirking Bertine to the priestess, Marian understands it was a setup. The priestess, now identified, asks Marian how she enjoyed hearing a confession. Marian gives a wry smile, concluding that nothing in this world is easy, which makes the priestess laugh. The priestess explains she wanted to test Marian since Bertine rarely asks for favors and beckons her closer. Holding Marian's face, the priestess remarks that she sensed unusual holy power and asks if Bertine fed her holy water, much to Marian's confusion. The priestess glares as Bertine smugly explains he thought some brat was stealing his holy water. Bertine boasts about his charm, but Marian panics, realizing with a start that she was the one who drank the holy water. Bertine is relieved the curse has no side effects and Marion dryly concludes that his strange behavior proves he's Jen's friend. Rainier rushes to Marion's side, asking how she feels, and Marion reassures her that she's perfectly fine. Marion's expression turns serious as she worries about the person who cast the curse in the first place. A voice explains that the curse she received is called Puppet, a name that surprises Marion. The voice continues, describing it as a rare mind domination curse, something akin to brainwashing or hypnosis. The priestess crosses her arms with a grim expression, finding the entire situation unbelievable. The voice explains that corrupted energy naturally attracts the weak and immature, which explains why the caster had so many followers. Marion remembers how many students were always around Trevor, wondering if the curse was the reason for his popularity. A voice concludes that without meeting the caster face to face, this is all the information they can gather. Rainier suggests snatching the caster, and Bertine agrees to wait for a chance, prompting a tiny Marion to tell them to stop the murder talk. The priestess calmly instructs them to bring the caster in alive for questioning, much to Marion's surprise. Marion raises a question to the group, wondering if the caster might have cursed the wrong target. She explains that she and the caster barely had any contact, so she doesn't see why she would be a target. The priestess firmly dismisses the idea, stating she doubts the caster was that much of an idiot. Rainier points out that he sat right next to her and speculates that he might have been after her test paper. Marion finds that explanation weak, questioning why he'd risk everything for a higher grade when he was already on the verge of being formally admitted. A tiny, frustrated Rainier shouts, wondering what he was really after, as Bertine tells her to calm down. Bertine advises that for now they have no choice but to wait and watch, since they lack enough information to act. The priestess explains that any priest sent by the Academy would likely just go through the motions of an investigation. Marion grows concerned, wondering what would happen if a professor suspected it was a curse. The priestess winks, adding that if someone files a formal complaint, the scope of the investigation would have to widen. She explains that a large-scale investigation would reveal the severity of the issue, and she doubts the Academy would allow things to escalate that far. Marion realizes, with a worried expression, that a full investigation would mean scanning every student under suspicion. The priestess concludes that the Academy won't attempt it, as the arrogant nobles would rise in outrage. Clenching her fist, Marion understands the Academy is in a difficult position, where both covering up the incident and investigating it lead to trouble. Rainier chides Marion for worrying, reminding her that she was the one who was almost seriously hurt. Marion offers a faint, weary smile, acknowledging her friend's point but still unable to shake her concern. Marion reveals her main fear is her guardian being summoned, imagining the trouble it would cause for the Academy to host a child of House Miller. With their discussion concluded, the priestess announces she'll take her leave, and the group thanks her for her help. Bertine cheerfully says they'll count on her again if needed, earning a tired side-eye from Marion. Waving them off, the priestess decides it's time for her to get some rest. As they leave, Marion internally notes the headmaster's shadiness, and continues to ponder why Trevor went out of his way to target her. Lost in thought, she reflects on how her research assignment suspiciously overlapped with his. She concludes that if it wasn't her exam scores he was after, then there must be another reason. An image of Trevor flashes in her mind, triggering a crucial memory. The realization hits her. He must have been after her research results on interacting with non-sentient creatures. The story pauses for a brief promotional interlude. A maid named Diana greets Marion, announcing that the items she ordered have been placed in the backyard. Standing before a huge stack of boxes, Marion admits she had forgotten about the order and ordered quite a lot. She decides to check the contents of the boxes first. As she reaches inside one of the boxes, she pauses, confused. To her surprise, the box and its contents begin to float into the air. A stunned Marion looks up as the box levitates, wondering if it's the work of magic. Peeking from behind a nearby tree, the black-haired, green-eyed boy watches with a smirk. Jen steps out to meet her, asking how long she's been waiting, and saying she should have called him. He asks what she learned at the temple, and Marion realizes that's why he came, explaining there were no new leads. Jen says that only confirmed their suspicions, and then gently asks how she is feeling. Marion gives a warm smile, reassuring him that she's fine thanks to the people who worried and took care of her. After inspecting her newly arrived goods, Marion agrees they are the best, while Zen asks about her next move. Zen states his intention to stay quiet about the incident unless directly implicated, prompting Marion to ask why. She explains that she wants to let the issue fade, fearing that the more attention it gets, the worse her situation will become. Zen would also prefer the incident be dismissed as a personal misdeed and quietly offers to take her boxes inside. He turns back to her, questioning her decision to drop the matter when her life was directly threatened. Marion argues that as the Duke's new stepdaughter, her identity being revealed would force her into the spotlight of high society. She concludes that having her identity exposed is just as dangerous as the curse itself. Zen retorts that if she was so concerned, she should have stopped her mother's reckless remarriage from the start. He lets out a frustrated sigh. With a dark look, Zen bitterly remarks on how considerate she is of someone who is never there for her when it counts. Marion turns away from him, looking toward the sky in silence. She steps forward purposefully, clarifying that her consideration isn't for her mother. Turning to face him, she gently cups his cheek and reveals, "It's you, Zen." Marion explains that if the investigation reveals Trevor's curse had a target and she was unharmed, she'd be forced to explain her protective necklace. She offers him a warm, reassuring smile. She elaborates to a pouting Zen that any investigation into the necklace's origins would inevitably expose him as its creator. Marion concludes she must remain quiet until Bertine's position is secure or she comes of age, but Zen scoffs, calling it a nice excuse. Suddenly, a brilliant golden magic circle erupts from Zen, forcing Marion to shield her eyes in shock. The light fades, and Marion realizes with a sigh that he's gone. She touches her chin with a wry smile, musing on his temper and wondering if he's going through puberty. 3 days later, Marion sits in a lecture hall, recognizing all the other students from the exam. A professor enters, calling for quiet and startling Marion. He begins his address with a grim expression, informing the students that Trevor's condition is more serious than they initially thought. The professor suggests Trevor was attacked, prompting an investigation, while Marion internally panics, realizing they don't suspect Trevor was the caster. He admits they haven't uncovered much yet. As the professor states, it's unclear if the culprit is an insider. Marion glances back at the murmuring students. He demands their full cooperation, and Marion understands he's deliberately trying to intimidate everyone. He warns that guardians may be summoned or home visits conducted, which visibly worries Marion. As the professor dismisses them, Marion can't shake the feeling that he was staring directly at her. Lost in thought, she gasps as someone bumps into her from behind. Marion quickly turns to apologize to a girl with long, light brown hair. As the girl walks away, Marion remembers seeing her at the exam hall. Other students watch the girl go, whispering amongst themselves that that's her. Marion peeks over a desk, her eyes wide with nervous curiosity. A swirl of red energy passes by as Marion quickly looks over her shoulder. Confused, she wonders if she just misheard someone speaking behind her. Walking outside, Marion realizes the professor's threat to summon guardians has turned this into a serious problem. She worries about the personal information she gave Lainey, trying to recall the details of her cover story. Marion Hoppin, a 16-year-old orphan living with her brother. She recalls the next detail, that she has a good relationship with her non-blood-related brother who worried about her attending the academy. Marion groans, remembering Lenny's over-the-top additions, like her brother being a mercenary who took out a loan for a fancy house. A tiny, angelic Lenny cheerfully explains that the loan was from the Roche Guild, making them close, leaving Marion speechless. Marion panics, realizing Lenny's fun was creating a huge problem, while a memory of Lenny asks for praise. Clenching her fists with determination, Marion decides she just needs to find someone to play the part of her brother. She needs an ally on her side, just as a butler with reddish-brown hair welcomes her home. Thinking she needs someone skilled with a sword, a gardener points her toward a man trimming hedges on a ladder. Marion approaches the white-haired man on the ladder and makes a shocking request. "I need you to be my brother." Sir Behan Rune looks down, completely baffled and sweating, and asks, "What?" Unseen by them, the blonde-haired boy, Orion, peeks around a pillar. Orion's face twists into a menacing grin, his eyes wide with crazed intensity as he whispers Marion's name, surrounded by crackling dark energy. A man with dark purple hair suddenly appears, startling Marion and Sir Behan as Marion exclaims, "Marquis?" The Marquis explains he came to check on her as Marion looks on in surprise. Sir Behan Rune covers his face in embarrassment, wondering if he has somehow offended the lady. The Marquis darkly muses about how she pushed him into hell without any malice, leaving a confused Marion to wonder what he means. Recovering, Sir Behan asks Marion to clarify what she meant by her request for him to become her older brother. He gestures toward a nearby seating area, suggesting they sit down to talk. Now seated, Marion explains she only approached him because she thought he was the only one around, and he agrees he's a suitable candidate for her conditions. He gives a small smile, admitting that her request is a bit unexpected. Marion clarifies that she's not asking for a favor but proposing a deal, which piques his curiosity. She inwardly reflects that Lord Rune's calm demeanor is a relief compared to the over-the-top solutions her friends would suggest, as he laughs, understanding her reasoning. He agrees that helping her won't be difficult, prompting a hopeful, "Really?" from Marion. Sir Behan smiles, admitting that although he has never acted before, he is willing to try. He then states that since this is a deal, she must also agree to his request in return, and Marion accepts as long as it's something she can do. He beams with a sweet, serene smile and says, "That's it." A tiny, confused Marion asks him to elaborate. He lists his conditions: for her to take walks and share meals with him daily, just as she does with Orion, which makes Marion grimace at the thought of seeking so much attention. He admits that Orion's behavior can be burdensome, but asks her not to view his request as too difficult. He gently advises her to simply accept that Orion was born that way. Marion forces a laugh, commenting on how casually he treats his lord. Sir Behan smiles, explaining that since Orion will be pestering him, he hopes she will see the situation as a positive opportunity. Later, back in her own house, Marion stands in her room and lets out a sigh, feeling drained from her time at the Duke's estate. Her eyes widen as she senses something. She glances toward her window, noticing a shadow moving outside. A foot lands silently on her windowsill. It's the black-haired, green-eyed boy, Jen, peering in from the night. Now inside, Jen chides her for letting people in so easily, but Marion calmly states she knew it was him. With a smirk, she thinks to herself that he's the only one who loiters near her window at night. She teases him, asking if he came because he was mad at her, causing him to flinch. Jen denies it while looking away, and Marion notes his guilty expression. She mentally calls him a coward as he glances away, flustered. Marion points at him, informing him that the role of her older brother has already been cast. Stunned, Jen demands to know who would agree to take on such a role. Marion teases him about sulking because he wanted the part, which he quickly and angrily denies. He reveals the real reason he came, presenting a chain clutched in his hand. He shows her a beautiful necklace with a large, ornate red gem, which she immediately recognizes. Inspecting it, Marion notes that while it's fancy, the seams are a bit clumsy. Despite its flaws, she clutches it with a genuinely happy smile. She glances at a bookshelf and praises Jen, calling him smart. Jen looks away, saying she only brings him things he can't refuse, while she recalls him always telling her to stay back. He explains that if she must stay behind him, he can at least do this for her, and he quietly thanks her. Overjoyed, Marion promises to use the gift well. Jen asks for the necklace back, intending to put it on herself. He gently brushes her red hair aside. With a soft smile, he fastens the necklace around her neck. Marion asks if it's an artifact, and Jen confirms it has both protective and communication magic. She curiously asks what the communication magic does. He explains that it monitors who she communicates with, which confuses her since she only talks to her mom and their friends. Touching the necklace, she playfully asks if he's being protective or obsessive, and inquires about location tracking. In a cute chibi style, Jen admits he couldn't remove the location tracking feature, and Marion accepts it with a smile. Jen announces that his business is done and turns to leave, though Marion invites him to stay and rest. Marion offers to stay with a flustered Jen until he falls asleep, knowing his nightmares keep him awake. As Marion smiles gently, Jen's voice from off-screen insists he can sleep without her, claiming he's not a child. He presents something to a shocked Marion, telling her to take sleeping pills. Looking out at the starry night sky, Marion admits that she's the one who is more worried. She sighs, thinking to herself that he's been trying too hard to act mature lately. A sweet memory shows a younger Marion and Jen holding hands in a field of flowers. The next day at the academy, Marion steels her resolve, knowing she must fulfill her deal with Lord Rune. Walking through the halls, she frets over how difficult it is not to feel burdened by the Marquis. Two girls whisper about Marion as she approaches, calling her shameless. Marion pauses, a flicker of realization in her eyes as she wonders why she didn't notice this sooner. Surrounded by a dark, swirling aura, she nervously questions what's happening this time. The gossiping students question Marion's right to attend the academy, wondering how she thought her secrets would remain hidden. Marion overhears them and wonders with dread why they're talking about her. Her friend Lini rushes over, calling out her name in concern. Lini grabs her hand, insisting they go outside to talk privately. In the courtyard, Lini gravely informs her that a strange rumor is spreading about her. Worried the news of the curse has spread, Marion cautiously asks what kind of rumor. Lini explains the rumor is that Marion was the last person to talk to Trevor, leaving Marion comically baffled. Marion clarifies they only exchanged a brief hello, but Lini confirms that's what people are twisting to blame her. Lenny worriedly admits that even though the rumor makes no sense, people seem to be believing it. Marion is left speechless by the accusation. As Leanie mentions an investigation team, a blonde girl with a ponytail interrupts them with a sneer. The blonde girl and her friend confront them, calling Marion shameless, while another student identifies her as the one from the rumors. The blonde girl smirks, suggesting Marion and Leanie are friends because they're both alike. She venomously calls Marion a disgraceful, nouveau riche murderer, shocking both her and Leanie. Leanie furiously defends Marion, demanding proof, but the girl cites Marion sitting next to Trevor and picking the same research topic. As a crowd gathers, Marion realizes with dismay that the confrontation is drawing unwanted attention. Stepping forward confidently, Marion announces she will clear up the misunderstanding. She explains that her only real conversation with Trevor happened after she had already submitted her application. Marion coolly concludes that since she entered the hall first, any seating complaints should be directed at Trevor. She boldly challenges the crowd to voice any other accusations, vowing to refute them all. The other students begin to doubt the rumor, swayed by Marion's confidence. The blonde girl stammers, struggling to find a response. Suddenly, another student calls out the blonde girl for having average grades. Enraged, the blonde girl accuses Marion of cheating, claiming she must have done something because she knew she would lose. She declares that a B student like Marion taking the advancement exam is suspicious in itself, piquing the crowd's interest. Marion's confidence wavers as she realizes the situation has turned against her. She understands this gives her a motive for harming Trevor and panics, wondering what to do. Leanie turns the tables, demanding to know how the blonde girl knows Marion's grades. Lonnie points out that grades are confidential and only accessible to the professor in charge. She continues to press the blonde girl for an answer. Cornered, the blonde girl stammers as Leanie demands to know how she obtained Marion's grades when she just met her. The blonde girl tries to flee, shouting that the grades aren't what's important. An authoritative voice cuts through the chaos, remarking on the spectacle they are making. The professor from the lecture hall appears, looking deeply unimpressed. He sternly addresses Marion by her full name, reprimanding her for causing a disturbance. Lenny leaps to her friend's defense, but Marion calmly tells her to stand down. The professor orders both Marion and the blonde girl to come with him. As they follow, Marion quietly tasks Leanie with investigating the Barrel family and the general situation at the academy. Marion walks away with resolve, confident in the undeniable fact that she is innocent. Marion realizes the blonde girl must have known something. The professor coldly instructs Marion Hoppin to take a seat. Marion freezes in shock, sensing something is wrong. She enters a room and realizes she's been summoned for a disciplinary hearing. Steeling herself, she reflects that hearings are meant to punish misconduct. Clenching her fist, she wonders if she's being dragged in as a suspect, since Trevor's case is still uninvestigated. Facing the academy officials, she concludes they intend to frame her as one confirms Trevor was poisoned. Her supervising professor and the academy dean reveal they have identified her as the source of the poison. Marion questions their claim about the poison's source, and the professor names Miss Abigail. A smirking Abigail appears, ready to give her testimony, leaving Marion speechless. Abigail falsely testifies that she saw a powder fall from Marion's pocket near Trevor's water bottle, a claim Marion finds ridiculous. As the professor notes Marion and Trevor were friendly, Marion realizes with dread that her fate is sealed. Feeling helpless, she believes no one will listen to her or her friends. A vision of the blonde-haired young duke, gently calling her name, flashes through her mind. The professor concludes the testimony, and Marion asks for a moment to calm herself before responding. With newfound resolve, Marion requests permission to call her guardian. The professor smiles condescendingly as Marion firmly repeats her request. He asks if her guardian is her brother, and from across the room she confirms. The officials exchange smug looks, and Marion assumes they think a guardian will be useless. Marion recalls listing her outcast brother as her only family, thankful for Lenny's accidental foresight. She agrees to a short, monitored call using her personal comms. Creak. A heavy door opens. The professor escorts Marion to a private room for her call. Walking down the hall, she overhears other students gossiping, already certain she is the culprit. She sighs, frustrated that the rumors have spread so far that the truth won't be handled quietly. The professor leads her into the room, reminding her that her time is short. With a defiant glance back, she wonders if they would ever believe Trevor attacked her first. She resigns herself to the fact that they've already decided to blame her, and won't listen. Touching her necklace, she worries that defending herself might endanger others. She realizes there is only one person she can turn to now. Holding a glowing communication orb, she prepares to contact that person. With the orb in hand, she hesitates, suddenly nervous about reaching out to him. She thinks about how she has always pushed the young Duke away, and this is the first time she's initiated contact. She closes her eyes and prepares for him not to answer, but the orb pings to life. A voice calls out her name from the glowing communication device. Startled but relieved, Marion reassures him that it's fine and he was just on a break. The young Duke asks what's going on and kindly offers to call Rune for her if needed. Marion realizes he's still thinking about her request for a fake brother. She feels a pang of guilt. Knowing she couldn't explain the urgency to him before, she clarifies that she was trying to contact him specifically, not Sarun. Explaining she's in a difficult situation, Marion nervously asks him for a favor. The young Duke's voice asks her what she needs. In a world where dragons soar through crimson skies and ancient magic hums in forgotten ruins, a young hero named Alara embarks on a perilous quest. Prophecy speaks of a shadow descending upon the land, a darkness that threatens to consume all light. Alara, with her heart full of courage and a magical heirloom guiding her way, must journey through treacherous mountains, solve riddles of old, and confront mythical beasts to awaken the legendary Sunstone, the only artifact capable of banishing the encroaching gloom. Along her path, she gathers a fellowship of unlikely companions, a wise-cracking rogue with a knack for getting into trouble, a stoic warrior haunted by a past betrayal, and a mischievous forest sprite who speaks only in riddles. Together, they face trials that test their bonds and their resolve, discovering that the true strength lies not just in magic, but in friendship and unwavering hope. Marion explains she asked Sarun to be her brother because the young Duke was too caring. She continues, stating the academy situation required a family member who could handle things discreetly. She admits she feared he would get too involved if she had asked him. She looks down, explaining that to her, family is something truly special. With a sad smile, he listens as she says he was just the son of her mother's new husband. He looks downcast as she explains she thought it was better to keep their distance. Clutching her dress, Marion admits to herself that she now realizes she was just a coward. She thinks about her fear of betrayal and of her loved ones getting hurt because of her. Knock knock. The sound from the communication orb draws her attention. A memory of the young Duke offering her a hand in a field of flowers flashes before her. Through the orb, the young Duke admits it feels shameless to say what he is about to. Looking at the fallen orb, Marion declares, "Right now, I need you, young Duke." She confesses that even if he agrees, it will be hard for her to see him as family right away. With clasped hands, she desperately asks if he could help her. She reminds him that he once liked her for seeing him simply as Orion Miller, not the young Duke. Clenching her fists, she asks if he would still grant her request now that she needs his position and power. A pulse of light emanates from the communication device in silent response. Orion's voice asks to pose a single question, startling Marion, who quickly agrees. He gently asks what he is to her and why she always pushed him away. He continues, asking if it was because he wasn't enough to be her family as Marion looks away. A memory reveals the truth. She couldn't accept him because she wasn't honest with her own feelings. She had convinced herself that for a fleeting bond, there was no need to know more. On the other side of the call, Orion listens patiently. Marion admits to herself that it wasn't his fault, though his attention was a bit overwhelming. A golden light surrounds Orion's back as he makes his decision. His voice suddenly declares, "I'm coming now," leaving Marion shocked. A brilliant golden light begins to fill the room around her. She looks down in astonishment as a glowing magic circle materializes at her feet. Orion smiles, thinking that when his precious little sister asks for help, a brother could never refuse. Much to Marion's surprise, he appears behind her, smiling warmly as he arrives in a flash of light. Back in the hearing room, the dean asks about her call, and Marion confirms her brother is coming quickly. The dean smirks, commenting on what he assumes is their very deep bond. HMPH, Abigail scoffs from the side, certain that Marion's struggles are futile. Marion cedes, wondering if she's being ignored so easily simply because she's a commoner. An official reveals that the poison used on Trevor was colorless and odorless, the type used to hunt beasts. He connects this to her mercenary brother, suggesting he could have easily obtained it and should be questioned. The dean agrees, stating her close relationship with her brother only strengthens their suspicion. Marion is horrified that they are now trying to drag her guardian into their scheme. She clenches her fists, furious they would corner a student just to appease the nobles. Looking at an ominous image of the academy, she realizes she never knew how corrupt it was. Knock knock. An attendant enters, announcing that the student's guardian has arrived. The dean smirks condescendingly, remarking on the admirable and touching bond between the siblings. The dean's smug expression vanishes as young Duke Orion Miller enters, his face a mask of cold fury. Orion asks if he is late, and Marion assures him he is just in time, as the stunned dean questions the word sister. Outside, a crowd of students clamors to see the famous young Duke Miller. Marion realizes Orion is more famous than she thought and thinks the bigger the scene, the better. Orion's expression hardens as he states he was briefed on the situation on his way there. The dean nervously explains that poison was detected in the young heir of the Barrel family. When Orion demands to know the poison source, the dean can only stammer in response. The professors look flustered as another official criticizes them for acting too quickly without the Mage Tower's cooperation. Orion glares at the dean, demanding to see the investigation record concerning his sister. As the dean fumbles with the papers, a flashback reveals the officials plan to frame Marion without the Mage Tower's involvement. Orion coldly declares that this looks less like an investigation and more like a plot to scapegoat a powerless student. Marion looks on, seeing for the first time just how cold and sharp he can truly be. Another official asks if Lady Marion concealed her identity, earning a sharp glare from Orion. Orion states that the Academy's unfairness is a greater issue than Marion's potential punishment. He continues, saying they are mistaken as he has no need to intimidate them. Orion questions why he would need to exert power when they have already judged her guilty, leaving the officials speechless. He leans in and quietly asks Marion about the request he made. With a confident wink, Orion confirms that everything is prepared. Orion announces he anticipated the Academy's struggle and brought someone to help. A bishop enters, and the stunned dean wonders why he is here. The dean furiously questions Orion for dragging the temple into an internal Academy matter. The bishop calmly tells the dean not to be so rigid, explaining he came because of a report. He reveals Marion herself reported to the temple about students involved with sorcery. In a flashback before the hearing, Marion tells Orion she cannot explain everything due to lack of time. She tells him Lenny is nearby, and he agrees to get the details from Lady Roach. Marion adds one last thing, revealing she recently visited the temple regarding an Academy matter. She explains, there is someone who will take action if a certain name is mentioned. Back in the present, Marion is relieved the bishop himself came, thinking it makes her case more certain. The Academy officials are aghast at the mention of sorcery, and the dean warns the bishop to be careful. The dean claims they are simply investigating a collapse, but the bishop says that's precisely why he's there. The bishop asks Marion for her reason to suspect sorcery, and she affirms she has one. Marion recounts suffering a sharp headache and fainting on the day Trevor collapsed. She explains that upon waking, she discovered her artifact had changed. Handing the bishop her necklace, she explains it contains holy power and she has never removed it. The bishop quietly suggests they focus only on the holy power for now, setting aside other matters. He confirms the necklace once held holy power and concludes its alteration means Marion was harmed. The bishop deduces this means Trevor was the attacker, shocking the Academy officials. Marion turns the tables, declaring she suspects Abigail Frey, who has aggressively pushed her as the culprit. She suggests she is being framed through a sorcery called puppetry. Marion calls out Abigail's open malice, and Abigail panics, denying everything. Abigail pleads her innocence to the professor, knowing a sorcery charge is heresy. The use of sorcery is considered a far graver crime than a student collapsing or accusing a noble. Realizing the officials will abandon her, Abigail panics as they now find her behavior strange. With suspicion now on her, she realizes no one will take her side. The bishop calmly states that the matter of sorcery can be verified. He reassures a terrified Abigail that she has nothing to fear if she is not tainted. A close-up on a red eye reveals an unknown power being activated. Whoosh! Marion watches in surprise as the power emanates through the room. Thump! One by one, several students, including the one who started to speak, collapse to the floor. Marion realizes with shock that more than just one or two students are involved. As students lie unconscious on the floor, the bewildered dean demands to know what is happening. Abigail trembles and collapses into the bishop's arms, confirming Marion's suspicion that she was cursed. Marion is stunned, admitting she never imagined so many students were involved. A female official realizes with dread that the situation is far worse than she thought. The dean angrily blames the female official, questioning how she did not notice this as the homeroom teacher. The professor defensively asks how she could recognize sorcery, as Marion notes they are just blaming each other. The dean silences the bickering officials with a sharp, "That's enough." The bishop, holding the unconscious Abigail, announces that the temple will take over the investigation. He orders the academy to be shut down immediately to summon the students, shocking the dean. The dean protests, calling the measure of shutting down the academy too extreme. The bishop coldly questions if the dean thinks his order is extreme. He furiously demands to know what the academy was doing, while so many students were ensnared by sorcery. The bishop declares that if they had properly investigated Trevor, the situation would never have escalated this far. The bishop warns everyone present that they could be implicated as accomplices to sorcery. He declares the temple will not stand by, causing the sweating dean to realize his predicament is dire. Orion gently tells Marion it's time for them to leave, and she agrees. As they walk away, Marion thinks that while the ducal house's help is needed, she doesn't feel sorry for those who are reaping what they sowed. She concludes her thought, admitting that she honestly feels no pity for them. A few days later, a newspaper headline announces the Beryl family has been stripped of their title and the Amber family demoted. Leanie remarks how impressive it is that their attempt to frame Marion led to their own family's downfall, and Marion laughs awkwardly. Leanie sips her tea and suggests that Marion should stay at the Duke's residence for a while. A chibi Orion appears, insisting she stay at the residence for her safety, warning that the nobles are on edge after the incident. Marion tells Leanie she agreed to stay, reassuring her that everyone at the ducal house is excessively nice. Leanie laments that she couldn't do anything to help, despite being so close, feeling she lost out to Marion's new brother. Marion comforts Leanie, explaining they have different skills and asking if she learned anything new about Trevor. Leanie questions her interest in Trevor, revealing he was once so violent he was sent to a monastery. Marion notes he seemed different after that, and asks Leanie which monastery it was. Leanie explains it was about 10 years ago, and she'll have to investigate further, as Marion wonders about Trevor's true motive. Recalling the bishop's intervention, Marion realizes the attack could have been far worse if she hadn't been the target. She contemplates Trevor's actions, questioning why he would take such an enormous risk just for the sake of his grades. Leanie leans in, saying there is one last crucial piece of information. She reveals that Trevor has gone missing. Startled, Marion can only ask, "What?" Marion questions how he could disappear from a coma, and Leanie confirms he was comatose but has vanished. Lenny promises to share any new information as Marion thanks her for her help. Marion waves goodbye as Leanie's carriage departs. As Marion walks back into the residence, she runs into Orion. She asks if he is on a break from his work, and he confirms. Orion beams, calling it a lucky encounter, and Marion nervously agrees. In a cute flashback, a dejected Orion is informed by a butler that Marion has gone out. Back in the present, Orion mentions hearing the academy was shut down. Marion finds it a natural consequence, privately admitting her diligence was only to secure a job quickly. When Orion offers to help her find a new academy or job, she quickly says she'd rather hire a tutor, deflecting his help. An eager Orion gets close, telling his little sister she can ask him anything, much to Marion's exasperation. She wonders how he can be so agreeable without even knowing what her request is. Marion states that she would like to meet with the academy's headmaster. Though she worries her request might seem suspicious, Orion simply agrees. He offers her a gentle, unwavering smile of support. Marion is stunned by his immediate and unconditional agreement. Orion then gently asks for her reason, adding that he will grant her request either way. Flustered, Marion quickly claims it's just simple curiosity and he doesn't need to worry. She turns away, beginning to explain her true reason. A memory flashes of a desperate voice calling her name as a bloodied fist pounds on a door. The memory reveals a beaten and bloodied young man with green eyes desperately pleading for her help. Returning to the present, Marion steals her resolve, telling Orion there is something she needs to ask. Later, in a dimly lit room, the headmaster is surprised by his visitor. With a condescending smile, the headmaster asks Marion if she has something to say to him. Marion stands before him, dressed formally, her expression unreadable. He mockingly compliments her new look before telling her to sit down. He calls her recent victory a satisfying display, but she dismisses his words as still all talk. The headmaster accuses her of hiding her identity and then betraying her mentor. Marion coolly retorts that she only revealed her identity because of the academy's incompetence. Furious, the headmaster slams his fist down, shouting that the incident could have been ignored if not for the ducal house's interference. The headmaster insists his actions were unavoidable for the academy's sake, but Marion just sighs. She tells him that his exact mindset is what cost him his position, shocking him. Marion waves off the argument, saying they should stop talking about the past. She gets to the point, stating she called him there to ask him something. Marion questions him about magic students who were dispatched years ago to search for something in another region, a fact that stuns the headmaster. In a flashback, a group of young, hooded students are shown, one of whom was guided by a local villager. Knock knock. The memory shifts to a younger, black-haired Marion, wondering about the student's presence as someone arrives to pick her up. A woman looks in on two sleeping children, the young Marion and a black-haired boy, noting they have already fallen asleep. The red-haired woman politely declines an offer for Marion to stay the night, not wanting to impose. As she tries to wake her sleepy daughter, the mother fondly remarks on how much she must have played. The memory shows the loving mother carrying her sleeping child, Marion. Bang! The memory turns dark as a bloodied fist pounds a door and a desperate voice yells for Marion. Bang! The desperate, bloodied young man from her memory appears again. Whoosh! Amidst roaring flames, he pleads for the sake of his family. Back in the present, Marion recounts the tragic end. That night, everyone, including the students and villagers, disappeared without a trace, the reason for their deaths remaining a mystery. The trembling headmaster confirms that not a single thing about the incident was ever revealed. He stammers that it's a closed case, admitting the imperial family covered it up without a proper investigation. When Marion demands to know who is behind it, the headmaster panics, telling her to drop the subject. He frantically warns her that speaking of it could get them both killed, but Marion retorts that he was put in charge of the academy because of that very incident. She explains she hoped he might have kept a record, but he denies having any such thing. The headmaster scoffs, declaring he would never do something so suicidal. He tries to shift focus by asking about the Miller ducal house's plans, but Marion clarifies that her investigation is personal. With a condescending laugh, he tells her she doesn't understand how things work and should not meddle. He insists that not even the Duke or the Emperor could do anything, but Marion calmly states she already knows that. Resolved, she explains that knowing this, she approached the matter carefully over a long time. The headmaster stares at her, a silent, tense moment passing between them. He observes how desperate she seems for the information, causing her to flinch. He concedes there are no official records, but hints he might have kept a personal note of the orders he received at the time. Seeing his chance, he asks what she can offer him for the information, and she asks what he wants. He offers to overlook her rebellion if she shows him sincerity, and Marion is internally speechless at his shamelessness. She realizes he must know something important if he wasn't just a figurehead. A sudden swirl of magical energy and glowing butterflies surrounds Marion, catching her by surprise. With a slight smile, she realizes the source of the power is right beside her. She coldly informs the headmaster she has no intention of making a deal. As he stumbles back in shock, Marion declares he must take responsibility for his own actions. Walking away, she warns him he'll lose everything and be left alone as he collapses to the floor. He desperately calls out to her, pleading that he has more to tell her. Crackle! Suddenly, golden energy envelops the headmaster, who cries out in pain. A hooded man with green eyes appears beside Marion, wielding the magic as he tells the stunned headmaster some things are not for him to know. While the headmaster screams that hiring a personal mage is illegal, the hooded man electrocutes him and demands he start talking to save his life. Grabbed by the lapels, the terrified headmaster quickly retracts his claim, insisting he lied and knows nothing else. Under duress, he reveals the cover-up was ordered by a noble with connections to the Mage Tower, and that's all he knows. Marion thinks with disappointment that he was just a placeholder after all. Still held captive, the headmaster cries out that this is a blatant abuse of power. He threatens Marion, warning she won't get away with threatening a prisoner for personal reasons. Thump! The hooded man declares the headmaster talks too much before dropping him unconscious to the floor. Marion chides her companion for getting carried away, but he dismisses the headmaster as useless now. With a slight smile, Marion reminds him that injuring the man would create problems when they return him to prison. The hooded young man, Zen, turns to look at her. Zen sternly questions why she was acting so recklessly on her own, leaving Mary Ann at a loss for words. A black-haired young man clenches his fist, asking a distraught Mary Ann why she won't ask him for help. He confronts her about moving on her own without a word, and she quietly apologizes. He understands things can be difficult at the academy, but sternly warns her that going off alone was dangerous. Pointing toward the unconscious, silver-haired boy on the floor, he exclaims that the guy could have attacked her. Marianne explains she didn't think he had the guts for it, her thoughts turning to Zen. Zen stares at her with intense, angry eyes, making her wonder if he's really mad. He sighs, commenting that he thought she might have settled down, but the academy didn't help. A glowing golden magic circle suddenly activates at Zen's feet. As the unconscious boy is lifted by magic, Marianne asks in shock if Zen is taking him. Zen looks away, telling her that if she doesn't trust him, she should at least tell her mother. The magic flares brightly as Marianne scoffs, wondering what her mother could possibly do. Peeking from behind a door, she muses that the dean didn't know anything more and hopes Zen will return the boy after he's calmed down. A silver-haired young man, in a formal uniform, Sir Rune, appears against a starry sky. Rune approaches Marianne, asking if she has finished talking, and she answers hesitantly. He calmly informs her that Zen has taken the boy away, explaining that he could feel the mana. Marianne looks worried, asking if the young Duke will be in trouble now that the prisoner is gone. Rune confidently reassures her that they have a high-ranking mage and will find him, though she seems flustered, thinking he missed her point. The next day at the ducal mansion, an unseen host asks if the meals are to someone's liking, glad they are spending time with Marianne. Marianne forces a laugh, realizing with a sweat drop that she missed her opportunity to excuse herself. At a grand dining table, she explains to her new family that she was planning to graduate early and find a job. The Duke suggests that now that she is a noble lady, she could attend another academy for a while longer. A flustered chibi Marianne panics, suddenly questioning if a noble lady can even get a job. Thump, a hand slams the table as someone enthusiastically agrees with the Duke's sentiment. Orion passionately declares that families shine brightest together, much to Marianne's annoyance. He then announces that they've made sure Marianne can stay at the ducal mansion anytime she wishes. Marianne smiles, deciding to clarify that she's actually planning to go back home soon to avoid a misunderstanding. Her red-haired mother interjects, stating there's no reason to live alone if she isn't working. Marianne looks at her mother in surprise, who returns her gaze with a knowing smile. Her mother explains that as a lady, she doesn't need to work, though the Duke adds that she should if she wants to. Marianne is taken aback, realizing that despite her mother's many remarriages, she's never been told where to live before. From off-panel, a voice suggests that staying at the mansion seems like the better choice. Orion enthusiastically agrees with his father's idea, as Marianne's mother looks on, pleased. A servant presents a new dish to Marianne's mother, a rack of ribs prepared with pride by the chef. A cute chibi Orion offers to have anything else prepared, and a chibi version of her mother calls him thoughtful. The Duke expresses his relief that they're getting along so well, but his wife insists that as family, they should of course eat together. Orion beams, agreeing with his father and promising to personally ensure Marianne is perfectly comfortable there. Marianne's mother warmly thanks Orion, who blushes and insists it's only natural, while a tiny, unamused Marianne glares. Marianne overhears two maids whispering about the strange atmosphere in the room. A gloomy aura surrounds a chibi Marianne as she wonders if she's the only one who doesn't fit in. Later in the garden, Marianne directly asks her mother why she suddenly told her to stay at the Duke's mansion. Her mother feigns confusion, as Marianne reiterates that she's never been told where to live before. Marianne insists there must be a special reason, but her mother calmly dismisses it as nothing. Her mother's expression turns serious as she touches Marianne's face, revealing that young Lord Beryl has gone missing and Marianne is now in danger. Marianne reels back in shock, her hand flying to her cheek. Her mother smiles softly, confirming that this means she's worried about her. Marianne looks on, a bead of sweat on her face as she processes that her mother is truly concerned for her safety. Her mother looks toward the sky, warning that things are about to get much busier for Marianne. She poses a rhetorical question, asking if Marianne really thinks the temple or the imperial family will just leave her be now. With a serious expression, Marianne is reminded of her new status as the Duke's adopted daughter and Tatiana's only child. The scene closes on a detail of the intricate gold and lace pattern on her dress. A red-haired woman explains that with no backing, she is the perfect candidate for a reward to boost others' prestige. The woman pinches a red-haired girl's cheek, telling her a summons will come soon, much to the girl's dismay. As the girl pouts, the woman explains the mansion's tight security is for her own good, even if it keeps her terrible friend away, which surprises the girl. In a cute chibi moment, the girl asks if her mother knew, and her mother winks, saying she knows her own daughter well. The mother smiles, playfully warning her daughter to be careful around the guards. The girl points out she hasn't moved in yet, but her mother suggests formally inviting the friend, musing he would likely hate it. With a gentle smile, her mother wonders aloud how the situation will unfold. Later, while Marianne sits with a brown-haired friend, a butler announces that a letter has arrived for her. Her friend points toward the envelope, urgently telling Marianne to look at the seal. A close-up reveals the distinctive and intimidating imperial crest on the red wax seal. The letter, addressed to the Honorable Lady Marianne Miller, formally invites her to the Imperial Palace in recognition of her achievements. Her friend Rennie remarks that Marianne's mother was right, while a flustered Marianne insists it can't be real. Holding the invitation, Marianne grimaces, realizing her mother had predicted this exact outcome. Marianne crumples the letter slightly as she addresses her friend Rennie. The two girls panic in chibi form, with Marianne wondering if she can feign illness to avoid the invitation, but Rennie points out they would just reschedule. Rennie asks why she is so worried, reassuring her the Miller dukedom will help, but Marianne admits she dislikes the attention and feels guilty relying on the young lord. Rennie offers a knowing, silent smile. She admits that she is surprised Marianne ever asked him for help in the first place. Marianne clutches the letter, conceding that she's a little surprised at herself too. With a determined gaze, she reflects that she never expected the day she was called Marianne Miller to come so soon. She remembers Orion's smiling face, thinking she never imagined having a new brother she could rely on. A faint smile touches Marianne's lips. She smiles warmly, admitting that she is trying to open her heart to him. Rennie observes that Marianne has finally given in to young Lord Miller. Looking out at a peaceful garden, Marianne simply says that he was, at least, helpful. Startled, Marianne looks on as Rennie suddenly stands up, declaring they must go get her fitted for a dress for the palace. Rennie grabs her wrist, insisting they must hurry, pulling a shocked Marianne along. Rennie passionately explains that preparing a proper dress is a very difficult and involved process. She lectures that finding the perfect dress is a rare feat, as it must be formal, fashionable, and tailored, which takes a long time. Rennie happily links arms with Marianne, excited for their shopping trip, when a man's voice asks if they're going out. Orion appears with a brilliant smile, explaining he was also on his way out and offering them a ride. Marianne suspiciously asks how he's on his way out without knowing their destination, while Rennie wisely suggests it's better not to question it. Orion blushes slightly, looking pleased with himself amidst a background of glowing roses. Confused by his eagerness, Rennie tells a bewildered Marianne to just roll with it. With a flourish of his cape, Orion strides ahead, telling them not to refuse his offer. Rennie turns to Marianne with a slightly worried expression. She asks if this means she must treat him like a brother too, and Marianne sheepishly says she would appreciate it. The scene transitions to a grand, ornate boutique. Inside the shop, Rennie admires a row of dresses, commenting on Marianne's lovely shoulders. Orion sternly interrupts, declaring an outfit too, revealing and demanding the next one be brought out immediately. Overwhelmed by the endless fitting session, a weary Marianne wonders if it will ever end. Orion and Rennie, whose last name is revealed as Locke, find common ground in their fashion sense and shake hands, with Rennie proudly stating she's Marianne's friend for a reason. As towering stacks of boxes appear, Orion decides to purchase every outfit she has tried on. Beaming, Orion and Rennie simultaneously declare that all the purchases should be put on their respective family tabs. Marianne watches, dumbfounded, as her brother and her friend begin a war of nerves over who will pay for everything. Accompanied by a smiling, silver-haired attendant, a chibi Marianne sighs, feeling too exhausted to even try and stop them. Through the carriage window, the journey ends as an attendant announces their arrival. Marianne stands ready in a beautiful, elegant white dress, her expression resolute, before the magnificent imperial palace. She wonders how her once ordinary life led her to receive an invitation directly from the emperor. The silver-haired attendant escorts a composed Marianne toward the grand palace entrance. Marianne wonders how she, who wanted an ordinary life, ended up here. The silver-haired young man questions her wish. He laughs, noting that becoming a duke's daughter made an ordinary life impossible, and a flustered Marianne agrees. The young man tells her not to worry, as she's being praised for her actions in the academy incident. He smiles, offering to share some helpful information. Marianne walks forward with renewed composure, adjusting her dress. A close-up shows the elegant lace and bows on her gown. She enters the throne room and curtsies, introducing herself as Marianne Miller to the emperor. The silver-haired emperor gazes down and tells her to raise her head. From across the grand hall, he thanks her for coming on short notice, and she expresses her honor at being summoned. The emperor confirms that he has summoned her to discuss the recent academy incident. He explains that the incident was largely the fault of those who were careless during the selection process. As Marianne looks on with concern, the emperor admits that he was the one who granted them their authority. The emperor declares himself indebted to her, but she politely insists he is not at fault. He recalls with frustration how the headmaster refused to take responsibility for the incident. The emperor finds Marianne's directness refreshing compared to others. He praises her as a talent the empire desperately needs, but she modestly says he flatters her. Overwhelmed by the pressure of the palace, Marianne longs to go home quickly. The emperor clasps his hands, announcing that he has an idea. He formally suggests that she transfer to the Imperial Academy. Stunned, Marianne lets out a shocked, "What?" The emperor offers an alternative for her to enroll with a friend, as Marianne panics over her informal outburst. Wringing her hands, she apologizes mentally to Sir Rune for ignoring his advice, but feels she must speak up. With a strained smile, Marianne politely declines the emperor's offer, saying she is too lacking for such an honor. Elsewhere, a chibi Sir Rune waits peacefully in a garden, hoping that his lady is doing well.